It all kicks off in a sketchy, pitch-black warehouse where a dude in shades glares at his phone, super salty that someone is ridiculously late. Apparently, he ordered takeout and just can't deal with the fact that the Chinese spot is taking a whole hour to deliver, grumbling about how that's exactly what's wrong with kids these days. Pacing back and forth in front of his goons, he drops some deep philosophy about politicians scamming people and corporations doing dirty business, just because nobody puts in an honest day's work anymore. Gripping a baseball bat, he wonders out loud if the world wouldn't be a total utopia if everyone just did their jobs like true pros, asking the boss right there if he doesn't agree. Turns out, this so-called boss is actually a dude tied upside down and gagged right in the middle of the warehouse. Acting like it's just another Tuesday, the Shades guy claims he's just doing his own job like a total professional. Then he points out that the tied-up guy's lack of professionalism is exactly why he's so hated and is about to permanently log out like that. Panicking, the hostage starts thrashing around wildly, while the goons around him tell him to chill before he makes things worse. One of the meatheads grabs the prisoner's face, giving him a heads up that the order is to rough him up as much as possible before they finish him off, telling the poor guy to stop squirming. Right at that peak tense moment, somebody shouts delivery, and a kid in an orange jumpsuit strolls into the warehouse just as the head goon was winding up for a punch. The dude in shades stops what he's doing and looks back, totally surprised that his food finally showed up. He immediately roasts the delivery guy for being so slow but admits the timing was spot on, demanding to know who the kid thinks he is. Super confused, the leader remembers his guys were supposed to be guarding the front and wonders how a random delivery boy just walked right past them. The kid in the orange jumpsuit stays completely silent, just staring down the crew through the dark visor of his helmet. Without dropping a single word, the newcomer just lets his heavy metal box slam onto the floor, grabbing everyone's attention. Slowly peeling off his gloves, the kid starts counting under his breath how many people are in the room, leaving the goons totally baffled by his NPC energy. The whole squad just stares at the biker from a distance, having no clue what his deal is with the random number mumbling. Checking his phone screen, the delivery guy counts 10 armed dudes, which totally bumps up the price per head plus the late-night fee. Already out of patience, the leader points a finger and yells, asking what the heck he's even doing there, while the kid calculates he'll need to charge an extra 700,000 won. With absolute zero chill, the delivery kid just answers that he came here to catch some hands. He goes on to explain that he needs to deal with all of them to actually secure the bag for his service. The crew immediately pull out their knives, and the leader warns him that what they're about to do is nothing personal. One of the goons wastes zero time and charges furiously at the intruder, thinking the biker is just yapping. Without breaking a sweat, the kid in the jumpsuit takes a quick step forward to intercept the attack. Catching the opening, he lands a clean, brutal hit right to the opponent's face, sending him straight to dreamland. Another guy tries his luck and swings his knife down hard right at the kid's helmet. Fast as lightning, the delivery kid blocks it, grabbing the goon's armed arm in a tight grip. With the enemy locked in place, he instantly claps back with a heavy hit right to the dude's midsection. The impact is so insane that the guy gets launched, flying across the warehouse like a literal ragdoll. The rest of the crew freezes up seeing their bros get dropped so fast, finally realizing this mystery delivery boy is not here to play games. Fixing his posture, the biker casually drops that he's in a rush because he needs to wrap this gig up and head to his next order. Getting his fists ready, he challenges the rest of the squad to just jump him all at once to save some time. In the blink of an eye, the warehouse turns into absolute chaos, with goons flying through the air and hitting the floor while the boss watches in pure shock. Sweating bullets, the leader backs up terrified, throwing insults and wondering what kind of absolute monster just wiped the floor with his men. Now the helmet kid is face to face with the boss, surrounded by knocked out bodies, while the bad guy mumbles that this makes zero sense. Desperate, the dude in shade screams, asking who hired the delivery boy and how much they are paying for this hit. Trying to save his own skin, he offers double or even triple the cash just to make the kid walk away. As his only response, the delivery guy lands a devastating straight-up punch right in the boss's face. Standing over the leader's knocked-out body, the biker calmly explains that taking a bribe violates his terms of service. With the enemies out of the picture, he walks over to the tied-up hostage and pulls him up to take the pressure off the ropes. To wrap up the job, the kid pulls out his phone and lifts the knocked-out boss's hand to force a thumbs up. The phone screen captures the hilarious selfie of the totally wrecked bad guy giving a thumbs up, serving as proof that the mission was a success. Satisfied, the delivery guy confirms the proof pic was sent and immediately starts checking out where his next drop is. In the background, the upside-down guy tries to get his attention, desperately grumbling through his gag. Answering the call, the biker rips the duct tape right off the hostage's mouth in one go. The second he can speak, The guy complains that the rescue took forever and orders the delivery kid to untie him already, thinking the boy is part of his crew. Since the biker doesn't even flinch, the hostage loses his temper and yells, asking if he's deaf. Checking his app, the kid lets out a confused sigh and drops the bomb that rescuing people isn't actually part of his order, leaving the guy completely speechless. Without giving a single care, the delivery guy turns his back and starts walking away, while the prisoner screams in panic, asking what's going to happen to him if he stays tied up. Annoyed by the yelling, the biker just walks back and slaps the duct tape right over the dude's mouth again. Before bouncing, he gives a heads up that if the guy ever has a job for him, he needs to send a formal request, revealing he works for Delivery Heaven under the name Lee Sang. Adjusting his helmet, the teen guarantees he'll take on any gig that involves throwing hands, as long as the payout is solid. Through his phone app, his whole routine is just accepting new, hardcore requests that keep rolling and non-stop. The hustle basically just requires him to solve conflicts head-on with zero hesitation. In return, he gets handed stacks of cold hard cash that make all the crazy risks totally worth it. It's been about 2 years since he started grinding in this shady underground hustle. Strolling through the quiet hallways of his high school, the kid admits he's always been pretty cracked at what he does. Now ditching his delivery disguise, high schooler Lee Sang checks his phone, showing that for a kid his age, his profits are just ridiculously high. Glued to his screen, he starts looking up real estate listings in the city. The MC's ultimate life goal is to cop a luxury apartment in the famous Seoul Tower Palace before he even hits 20 years old. Analyzing the prices, Lee Sang gets super salty seeing that the housing market went up again, thinking the whole thing is an absolute scam. He quickly checks his bank account, seeing he's already stacked up over 52 million won, noting the massive deposit from his last. Standing by the window, the kid stretches and realizes that at this rate, even if he grinds his whole life, reaching his goal is going to be incredibly tough. Staring off into space, he reflects that even though he's making bank for a student, the orders have really dried up lately. Dealing with this dry spell, the teen seriously starts wondering if he should just go get a regular part-time job. Frustrated with the whole vibe, he mutters to himself and prays to the universe for some kind of financial miracle. Looking back, Sang grumbles that it wouldn't hurt anyone if a fat stack of cash just magically dropped from the sky into his lap. Right at that moment, his attention gets pulled by some weird noise out in the school hall. A chubby school bully is cracking up watching a girl on the floor, mocking her by saying he just wanted to say hi and telling her to eat more so she doesn't go flying like that. The bully's friends join in on the toxic joke, laughing about how he acts super aggressive but uses a sweet voice to cover it up. Down on the floor, the bruised girl doesn't back down and just glares at the group of guys with pure disgust. Triggered by her rebellious vibe, the bully scowls and asks if she seriously has the guts to roll her eyes at him. With zero empathy, he winds up for a cheap kick and tells her that acting all arrogant only works when you actually have the upper hand, telling her to wake up to reality. Humiliating her in front of everyone, the bully reminds her that her dad passed away and left nothing but a mountain of debt behind. As the girl curls up trying to protect herself, the bully steps closer, claiming he's not asking her to do anything crazy. He casually drops the absolute wildest line, suggesting she should just be his girl. But the girl totally stands her ground, making it crystal clear she wouldn't do that even if he paid her. Before things can get any uglier, somebody calls out the group from behind. It's Lee Sang pulling up in the hallway, straight up telling the guys to apologize to the girl on the floor. Offended by the interruption, the bully's friend turns around running his mouth, asking what he just said. Right then, another classmate desperately yanks the guy back, warning him that nobody should ever mess with the MC, while the chubby bully looks confused about why everyone is so terrified. The panicked kid explains that even the seniors avoid beefing with him, begging them to just drop a random apology and get out of there. Acting like he owns the place, the bully glares and states he has zero intention of doing that. He then asks if the newcomer is the girl's boyfriend and tells his crew it's time to bounce. The MC just keeps staring the group down ice cold, asking who the bully thinks he is to decide if he's going to apologize or not. Losing his cool, the chubby guy pulls out a sketchy box cutter and asks if the kid is going to keep looking at him like that. Totally unhinged, he threatens to literally carve the student's eyes out. Wasting no time, Sang swings his own backpack like an absolute weapon straight into the guy's face, knocking the troublemaker out cold while his friends beg him to stop this madness. Terrified by the kid's crazy strength, the other guys frantically apologize on behalf of their knocked-out bro and drag his body down the hall. Sighing, the MC mutters about their total lack of manners, noting they should have apologized directly to him instead. Then the student casually drops a business card right on top of the head of the girl still sitting on the floor. Walking away with his hands in his pockets, he lets her know she can hit him up if she ever needs backup, promising he'll take care of anyone as long as he gets paid. He even sweetens the deal, saying that since times are tough, he can hook her up with a special 2% discount. The girl just quietly watches him walk away down the hall. Looking down at her hands, she checks the little piece of paper showing his name as an employee of that weird delivery app. Totally confused by the whole vibe, she sits there trying to process the guy's totally random behavior. A little while later, the school bell rings, letting everyone out for the afternoon. Already outside, the MC checks his phone and sees it's past 6 o'clock. Grabbing a quick snack on the street, he complains that he can't score a single new gig, remembering that just yesterday he managed to grab 2 of them. Chilling near his delivery scooter as the sun goes down, the kid sighs, feeling like the grind to stack up cash is just way too hard. Looking out over the massive city skyline, he thinks about how there are so many buildings all over the world. Yet he gets super salty over the fact that he doesn't own a single one of those insanely expensive properties. Right in the middle of his deep thoughts, the app drops a notification sound announcing a new order. Hyped, he confirms the gig and sees the payout is ridiculously generous for a drop-off in the rich part of town. Fired up by the opportunity, the biker instantly jumps up to check the client's address. Reading the info on the screen, the kid's eyes go wide in total shock at the location. The destination is literally the ultra-luxury apartment complex he's been dreaming of living in. Standing in front of the massive structure, the student is just in awe, whispering that he can't even see the top because it's so freaking tall. Happy with his luck, he gets ready for the job, mentioning he's always been curious to see what the inside looked like. Throwing on his classic orange jumpsuit, he adjusts his gear to get fully into character. Next, the teen puts on his dark helmet to completely hide his identity. Finishing his prep, he tightens his protective gloves. Feeling the hype, Sang claps his hands together, admitting he's actually super pumped to work today. Locking in, he decides this is the perfect moment to make an absolute bag. Soon enough, he's strolling down the quiet, super fancy hallways of the complex. The elevator finally hits the top floor, opening up to the entrance of the highly coveted penthouse. Stepping out into the private hall, the biker wonders what kind of rich person would end up as a target on his app. Without second guessing, he turns the knob and pushes the massive door open. Walking into the pitch-black apartment, the delivery guy announces his arrival out loud. Using his phone light, the kid finds the total darkness super sketchy and asks if anyone's home, totally confused why all the lights are cut. Flipping on his flashlight, he tries to get a better read on the creepy vibe. The beam catches a bunch of wildly expensive decorative vases just knocked over by the entrance. Moving slowly through the huge living room, the delivery guy notices the place is totally trashed. Annoyed, he complains about all the junk in the way, whining that the lack of light is ruining his vision. Suddenly, a shadow figure lunges out of the dark straight at him. The sound of rapid footsteps gives away that a whole squad is rushing him at once. In a split second, a group of dudes in suits packing knives completely surrounds the biker. The MC throws up a quick guard just as he takes the first heavy hit. Catching a window, Sang counters with a brutal strike that catches his attacker flush. The impact launches the goon right into the luxury furniture, leaving him wrecked on the floor. Standing in the middle of the mess, the delivery guy glares at the intruders, asking himself what kind of setup this is. Checking out the group's menacing look, he instantly figures out these guys definitely don't own the place. Frustrated, he looks at his phone complaining that the client didn't mention the enemy headcount, realizing he's gonna have to charge a premium and praying he doesn't get scammed. The intruders are shook when they realize the guy is just a kid, warning each other that he's not the main target, but they seriously need to respect his crazy strength. Locking back in, one of the goons yells the order to jump him all at once so he doesn't have room to breathe. The brawl kicks off again, with the MC dodging swings and throwing rapid-fire kicks at his attackers. Keeping his cool, the student starts mentally counting how many guys he's already knocked out in the chaos. On the flip side, one of the suits charges in furious, wanting to end this little interference. Trash-talking the biker, the goon tries to land a cheap shot right at his back. Super agile, Sang spins around and blocks it, locking onto the enemy's wrist with an iron grip. With the guy trapped, he claps back with an absolutely devastating combo of clean hits. The force is so insane that the dude goes flying and crashes hard into the penthouse floor. Without missing a beat, the kid pushes forward and totally stuffs the next goon trying to sneak up on him. Flipping the script, he uses the guy's own momentum against him, landing a massive counterattack. The rest of the squad watches the scene completely mind-blown by the kid's terrifying skills. Pausing for a sec, the delivery guy announces he's already packed up 5 guys from their crew. The second another one tries his luck, the kid sends him packing with a flawless kick. Out of nowhere, a much bigger and beefier goon manages to grab the MC's wrist, totally locking down his movement. Keeping the kid pinned, the giant compliments his speed but warns him that guys his size handle things with pure brute force. Caught off guard by the massive size difference, the student just mutters a curse, complaining about the totally unfair weight classes. Surprised by the situation, Sang is genuinely shocked by the insane grip strength on his wrist. Super uncomfortable, he complains that dudes hugging each other from behind like that is incredibly gross. A second later, the giant lets out a high-pitched scream of agony as his whole posture gets broken. Confused by the scene, one of the masked goons asks what his buddy is doing just standing there not attacking. Having completely dominated the giant, the delivery guy calls out the masked dude, asking if he wants him to come over there and handle him next. Terrified by that crazy display of strength, the intruder backs up, cursing at the kid. The absolute chaos keeps raging inside the luxury penthouse 801. Showing zero mercy, the student launches the masked guy full force right into the apartment's main door. Confirming the count, he declares that 7 attackers sent to the lobby back-to-back. With a deafening crash, the criminal drops unconscious on the dark entryway floor. Scanning the room, the biker realizes the job isn't 100% done yet. Moving fast, he yanks out another goon who is trying to hide, announcing that he was the last one needed to meet the quota. But mid-swing, the MC completely freezes, totally caught off guard. To his absolute shock, the girl from school is standing right there, holding the bad guy in a chokehold. Totally confused by the wild coincidence, Sang asks what on earth his classmate is doing there at this hour. Cold as ever, she claps back, asking what the obvious reason would be for her to stand in her own apartment. Flashing her phone screen, the girl reveals she's the one who booked his services through the delivery app. Looking at the knocked-out goons on the floor, she admits they are pros and praises the kid for his insane sweep. Seeing how easily he folded everyone, the client declares the boy is perfect for her plans. The student stands there totally clueless about what she's actually hinting at. Keeping her serious face on, the classmate decides to just cut straight to the chase. With ice in her veins, she officially proposes they team up and work together from now on. Pointing at the trashed living room, she explains there's a hit out on her, and she wants to put his strength on payroll full-time. Trying to sell it, she promises the gigs won't be any different from the crazy late-night drops he's already used to. Annoyed by the bold move, the delivery guy steps up and rejects the offer, saying that taking on full-time clients totally breaks his operating rules. Skeptical, he brings up how the school bully had been telling everyone her family was completely broke. Because of that, the biker suggests she should worry about how she's going to pay for this rescue fee instead of offering fake jobs. Totally unfazed by his accusations, the girl just calmly agrees with his logic. Out of patience, Sang tells her he only takes cash and tells the client to pay up so he can bounce. He also hits her with the bad news that the extra enemies massively bumped up the initial price of the. Suddenly, a massive stack of cash hits the delivery guy right in the chest, catching him completely off guard. Right after, it starts literally raining money, dropping thousands of high-value bills right at the MC's feet. Shook by the fortune on the floor, he hears the girl offer a wild 100 million won for every completed mission. Totally ignoring his so-called operating rules, the classmate makes it clear they both have needs that match up perfectly. Her whole pitch basically comes down to the fact that as long as their interests align, that's all that matters. Holding the heavy bricks of cash, the teen mumbles in disbelief, wondering if any of this is actually real. Completely hypnotized, he tries to process if he's genuinely holding 100 million won in cold hard cash. Catching his vibe shift, the girl mocks him, noting that his whole attitude just got a lot friendlier. Snapping back to reality, Sang states he has just one last question before making his final call. Locked in, the client pressures him to answer if he's taking the massive deal or walking away from the bag. The night quietly rolls on through the bright, chill streets of the big city. At an empty ATM, the machine just waits for the next person to do some late-night banking. Just outside the apartment complex, the student sits looking totally exhausted in front of the screen. Super paranoid, he holds one of the 50,000 won bills up to the light to see if it's legit. The kid's stressed-out eyes show his real fear of getting completely played right after risking his life on that job. To settle it once and for all, he slides the bill into the ATM slot. The machine eats the money and starts running its standard automated check. Sitting there, the biker literally chews on his nails, completely eaten alive by anxiety while he waits. The stress takes over as the processing screen feels like it's taking an eternity. Finally, the screen flashes a message confirming the deposit went through and the bill is 100% authentic. Hearing the robot voice thank him for his transaction, the kid's eyes go wide as he goes into absolute shock. With tears welling up, he realizes with a heavy heart that the crazy fortune she offered was entirely real. In that agonizing moment, he flashes back to the exact scene from 2 hours ago in the dark penthouse. The bruised-up girl stared him down, waiting for a final yes or no on the million-dollar partnership. Without skipping a beat, the MC had bowed down to the floor in front of her, totally picturing himself surrounded by fake money. In an act of pure financial submission, he lowered his head, completely surrendering to the insane offer. Acting super tough, he accepted the deal instantly, throwing all his pride straight in the trash. Snapping back to his harsh reality, the teen aggressively grips the only stack of cash he kept in his pocket. But the real version of his flashback shows him standing up annoyed, declaring he would never say that and dramatically rejecting all the money. Unbothered by his little outburst, the girl just clapped for his offended acting, admitting she almost bought his rejection. Back then, the delivery guy had closely inspected one of the bills, guessing it was a cheap counterfeit. Glaring at the client, he threw it in her face that the fortune was totally fake and worthless. Pointing out flaws in the smell, texture, and color, the kid asked if she really thought she could play him that easily with Monopoly money. Bringing up the rumors about her family going broke again, he asked who she thought she was trying to scam. Faced with the disrespect, the student stayed quiet for a second before asking if he wasn't going to seriously regret walking away. As his only answer, the teen literally just flipped the bird at the girl he thought was a broke wannabe. Turning his back, he wiped her debt for the rescue since she looked so pathetic, only demanding that she pretend she didn't know him at school from now on. Back in the present at the ATM, the kid grabs his own hair, having a total meltdown realizing he just rejected actual wealth. Sick to his stomach over his own stupidity, he thinks about sprinting back to the apartment, but his ego just can't handle that level of humiliation. Banging his head against the ATM, the biker basically short-circuits for throwing away his biggest chance at getting rich. Trying to cope, he checks his phone, praying that some other money-making miracle happens with his investments. The app shows the crypto coins he bought a few days ago absolutely skyrocketing. Totally mesmerized, Sang watches the numbers pump non-stop, mind-blown that his profits jumped a whole decimal place so fast. With a smile of pure delusion, he cracks up laughing, deciding to bet his entire net worth on the promise of buying that dream luxury apartment. Right after that unhinged choice, the chart absolutely tanks, nuking all his finances into a totally brutal, irreversible loss. Completely losing his mind over the massive financial wipeout, the kid just stands at the ATM feeling his entire world collapse. Unable to hold back his rage, he throws a devastating punch at the machine, shattering the glass into a million pieces. With one busted hand and his phone still in the other, the teen stands there panting in the middle of the mess he just made. The consequences for his freakout hit instantly, and soon enough he's in handcuffs rocking an orange jumpsuit down at the police station. While one cop points out he's still a minor, the other officer doesn't care at all, leaving the student looking totally hopeless. Getting questioned at the desk, the cop demands to know what was going through his head trying to rob the place, asking for his parents' numbers and his school name. But by some miracle, the officer lets him know the bank decided to go easy on him because of his age, letting him go as long as he pays for all the damages within a week. Hearing the verdict, the MC's eyes go wide, sinking into an even deeper state of shock. Looking at the receipt in his hands, he realizes his little freakout just cost him almost 10 million won in repairs. Crushed by his massive new debt, the biker wanders the dark streets feeling the heavy weight of his actions. Completely lost, he spends the whole night pacing around, obsessing over his absolute garbage. The next morning, it's a chill day at school, but somebody asks to talk out in the hallway. Rocking heavy bags under his eyes and looking like he hasn't slept a wink, Lee Sang walks up, bringing up their conversation from yesterday. Staring right at the bruised girl, he straight up begs her to give him a chance to take back everything he said. The girl just looks at him with zero expression, not dropping a single word about his desperate plea. Around them, other students start whispering, totally confused about what the MC is trying to pull. Just then, the bully who got knocked out earlier rolls up with his crew, declaring the timing is perfect because he was already hunting for the delivery boy to get payback. Getting right in his face, the bully claims he let it slide last time, but now he brought top-tier guys who actually know how to throw down. Completely ignoring the threat, the student just aggressively grabs the bully's face, suggesting they finish what they started yesterday. Using a ton of force, he yeets the troublemaker across the room, asking his client if she's really going to reject his offer that coldly. The bully crashes into the desks, completely knocked out, making his goons scream his name in absolute shock. Mad at the disrespect, one of the bigger dudes grabs the MC's shoulder, asking if he's totally lost his mind. Staying chill, Sang turns to the goon explaining he was just testing the waters before accepting, since the contract payout was so massive. Easily dodging the enemy's swing, the biker lands a clean hit, arguing that nobody could make a huge decision like that on the spot. Handing out punches to the rest of the gang, he proposes that instead of 100 million per gig, he'll settle for just half of that. Taking a window to kick another guy, the kid even mentions they'll need to deduct taxes, suggesting they just run everything through the app. With all the troublemakers eating floor, he walks up to the girl with his hand out, asking if he could get a 10 million advance to sort out a super urgent problem. Showing total submission to his new boss, the kid begs for the contract, promising he'll sign it right this second. But the girl just raises her hand with a dead serious look, instantly freezing the kid's desperate begging. Turning her back on the student, she makes it crystal clear the conversation is over. Panicking over getting rejected, he tries to grab her, reminding her she literally said she needed his muscle. Stopping in her tracks, the classmate gives him a serious side-eye. With a strict tone, she points out that the boy has been talking to her with zero respect this whole time. The biker freezes when he hears her demand that if he actually wants a favor, he needs to ask again politely. Annoyed, he tries to argue they are the exact same age, but she instantly shuts it down, saying they now have a client-contractor dynamic and demands proper respect. Threatening to drop the whole thing, the client warns him he can forget the bag if he can't act right, forcing the kid to swallow his pride. Having literally zero other options to pay off his massive debt, the MC drops to his knees in the hallway for a totally humiliating apology. With that sorted, the girl reaches into her bag and starts reading off the school bully's personal info. Pulling out a file, she calls out the attacker by name, making it known she has big plans for him. Surprised, the delivery guy watches his client coldly declare that the troublemaker deserves a punishment way worse than anyone else. The scene completely flips to a super luxurious massive golf course under a clear blue sky. A guy in a suit hypes up his boss's amazing golf swing, who is surrounded by a whole squad of security. But the company president lowers his club, keeping the vibe super heavy and tense. Glaring at his employees, he asks if it looks like he's having a good time, getting a loud no from all of them. Lighting up a cigarette to cope with the stress, the man grumbles, completely fed up with the whole situation. The powerful CEO complains that the world is full of useless NPCs who aren't even worth the paychecks they get. Suddenly, his phone starts blowing up in his pocket. Checking the screen, he sees the call is from his precious son. Doing a total 180, the president answers with a huge smile, sweetly asking if his boy needs some more cash. On the other end, the kid replies with a crying voice, calling out for his dad. The bruised-up son is curled in a ball and snitches that the school girl is the one who did it, demanding payback. Confused, the CEO confirms the name and realizes she's actually the daughter of the exact guy he's been hunting down. Crying from pure rage, the student cries that she ordered a hit on him and even shaved his head in the most humiliating way possible. Making it even worse, a pic of him knocked out and bald got leaked all over social media for everyone to see. Completely losing it, the teen cries that he'll never be able to show his face at school again after getting exposed like that. Listening to his kid cry, the powerful boss just quietly smokes his cigarette. Trying to calm the boy down, he promises he'll handle everything and tells his son to stop stressing. The second the call ends, the president puts his phone away. Breaking down the situation, he thinks about the absolute nerve of this girl treating his heir like trash. Looking straight ahead, he questions the three men buried up to their necks in the grass, demanding to know how they plan to take responsibility for failing so hard. The boss points out that the mercenaries couldn't even handle one single high school girl, yet they still had the nerve to charge a premium for their totally botched job. Lining up his golf club, the CEO declares that street trash doesn't deserve any trust whatsoever. Showing zero mercy, he takes a brutal swing right at the object shoved in the buried guy's mouth, injuring him in the process. Checking the result of his hit, the president slowly turns his head. A kid rocking delivery gear and a helmet strolls up, commenting that playing golf actually looks way harder than people think. With a confident smirk, the biker says he'd rather stick to what he's best at, which is using pure brute force on people. Agreeing with the newcomer, the CEO confirms that's exactly why he called him out here, while his assistant gets a briefcase ready. Hyped for the new mission, the delivery kid promises he'll do a solid job right as the case clicks open. The president reveals the payment is locked in and even promises a fat bonus if the job is handled flawlessly. Staring at the rows of stacked cash, the biker is totally blinded by the massive payout. Unable to hold it in, he lets out a loud, totally unhinged laugh right in the middle of the golf course. Trolling the suits, he pats the assistant on the shoulder, asking who still does in-person requests in this day and age. Flashing his phone, the delivery guy explains that top-tier pros like him just use an app to grab gigs, roasting them for being boomers. Aggressively grabbing the suit by the tie, the kid states the boss's company must be full of total losers if they can't even catch one teenage girl. Triggered by the merc's total disrespect, one of the massive bodyguards steps up, telling him to shut his mouth and remember who he's talking to. Wasting no time, the delivery guy lands a lightning-fast hit right in the disrespectful guard's face. Turning his head with pure disgust, the biker tells the giant not to touch him, calling the guy an absolute idiot. While the guard screams in pain holding his face, Sang figures out the guy in the suit must be the manager, mocking that with such garbage leadership, it's no wonder the work is trash. Checking his phone, the leader admits they really fumbled the whole situation, but says he's leaving the entire mess in the hands of some guy named Minjun. Glued to his screen, the student tells them to hurry up and sort it out so he can get out of there. On the app, Seong Siana's profile pops up as the target, complete with a warning that she hired a full-time biker for protection. Through the dark visor of his helmet, the MC's eyes lock onto the mission specs. Somewhere else, a dude in a cap and shades announces he's going to handle the target however he wants, asking if anyone has a problem with that. Casually lighting a cigarette, he gets the green light to do whatever he wants, as long as he scrubs the scene and leaves zero trace. Cutting back to the delivery kid, he hits the accept button for the new order on his app. With a huge, hyped smile hidden under his helmet, the teen simply declares the deal is locked. The phone immediately hits him with a notification that the delivery is complete, flexing a solid 50 million won deposit. Jumping to another moment without his disguise, Sang is walking down the street checking his phone, noticing that payments will now run directly through the app, and the contract is binding until the job is done. Looking at his client, the student points out the obvious fact that he is banned from taking any other gigs while he's on her payroll. Pointing a finger right at him, the bruised girl demands that no matter what goes down, the biker has to stay right by her side. Keeping her strict vibe, the student asks if the guy can actually swear to follow her rule of staying close. The MC goes quiet for a sec, a little caught off guard by how intense she's being. Walking next to her and scratching his neck, he repeats the line about staying together, joking that it sounded super deep and asking if she always says such embarrassing stuff. Realizing his client is getting annoyed by his jokes, Sang throws his hands up in defeat and agrees to do what she wants. Without blinking, the girl just keeps staring him down, demanding he say the actual oath out loud. To make it official, the delivery guy taps a button on his phone, sending the system confirmation straight to her device. Getting the ping, the girl announces that from this exact second, he is officially her personal biker. Feeling relieved, the kid thinks at least his main bag is secured, but then he starts stressing about his monthly bills, feeling weird about having to beg for a discount now. Trying to hustle some side cash, he asks when the boss is going to drop the next gig, suggesting it could even be a basic food run instead of a $1 million mission. Right then, the girl starts walking the total opposite way, and the kid points backward, reminding her the school is the other way. Ice cold as usual, she just replies that she's heading to work. Totally shook, the biker asks if she's really telling him to skip class, yelling that he desperately needs his perfect attendance award. While they walk through the plaza, he keeps whining about his school attendance, asking where she had him park the scooter. Soon enough, the duo is seen zooming across the city together on the kid's little yellow scooter. The final drop-off point ends up being the massive front gates of Tangio High School. The scene shifts to a dark classroom, where a bunch of terrified students are lined up in front of their bullies. Sitting super relaxed with a spotlight on him, the blonde leader of the bullies watches his victims looking completely bored out of his mind. Breaking the heavy silence, the troublemaker calls out the kids with a super arrogant tone. Turning to his chubby sidekick who is literally eating a sausage, the leader asks what he said to make the freshmen shake so hard, claiming he was super polite to them. The blonde keeps trolling, saying he has zero clue why they are standing there frozen in fear when they walked into the room on their own. Leaning forward with a messed up smile, the bully tells everyone to chill out and warns he's only going to say this one last time. Pointing at the floor like a dictator, the leader demands that one of the students take off their clothes right this second. Keeping the pressure on, he threatens to get physical if they keep disobeying, suggesting they just do things the easy way. Suddenly, the MC's voice rings through the room yelling "Delivery," as he rolls in rocking his classic orange jumpsuit. Checking the details on his phone, Sang confirms the blonde leader's name, plus his grade and homeroom at the school. Confused by the interruption, the chubby sidekick asks if the boss ordered something at 9 in the morning, telling him to drop the food. The blonde is also totally lost, admitting he did place an order but finding it super creepy that the delivery guy knows his full name like that. Before he can even finish his sentence, the bully gets completely rocked by a devastating flying kick from the biker right to the face. Landing smoothly on his feet, the student just finishes his sentence, letting him know that flying kick was his order. Seeing his boss get folded in a split second, the sidekick throws his hands up, surrendering instantly out of pure panic. Heavy footsteps echo through the room as a new person steps into the zone now controlled by the delivery kid. Walking past the goons with their hands up, the client enters asking if her contractor handled everything exactly how she wanted. Flashing a smile, the biker throws up a thumbs up, guaranteeing the rapid delivery was a total success. Right after, the kid crouches next to the defeated leader's body to swipe his phone. Grabbing the bully's busted face, Sang tries to use the phone's face unlock, forcing the troublemaker to look at the screen. The phone throws up an error message, saying Face ID is unavailable because the owner's face is way too swollen. Seeing the fail, the girl lets out a massive sigh of total frustration over her employee's incompetence. While the kid complains the tech is glitching, the boss roasts him, saying that's exactly why she told him to avoid hitting the face, calling him a total noob. Telling her coworker to act like a pro, the girl orders the masked goons to grab a tissue from her bag to wipe the blood, while they secretly think about jumping her. Catching their hesitation, the student calls them out with an incredibly strict voice. Glaring at the criminals, she demands to know which school each of the terrified girls they brought their goes to. Without giving them a second to answer, the client points a finger like a boss to drop her next command. With zero hesitation, she orders the bullies to get on their knees in the corner of the room and keep their arms straight up. The final warning is that if they drop their arms without permission, they are totally finished, which they agree to instantly, while Sang thinks her punishment style is super weird. Snapping the biker out of his thoughts, the boss turns and demands to know what he's doing just standing there, catching the boy totally off guard. Checking her own list on her phone, the girl tells the delivery kid to move, warning that they still have a massive amount of ground to cover today. Next up, the sign for Gujiang High School marks the next target for the unstoppable duo. Inside a classroom, a meathead with girls on his lap complains that it's way too early for a lunch delivery, screaming to know who the intruder is. As a direct response, the bully known as Jiang Xiangwen catches a brutal knee straight to the jaw. Pulling his phone, the biker snaps a pic of the knocked-out attacker and declares another delivery is officially complete. The rush continues down another hallway, where a panicked kid is desperately running out of breath trying to escape the orange jumpsuit menace. Seeing the sign for the teacher's lounge, the troublemaker lets out a huge sigh of relief thinking he found a safe zone. Busting the door wide open, the teen begs the teachers for help, screaming that an absolute psycho broke into the school and is attacking kids. Before he can explain anything else, a black-gloved hand aggressively grabs his face from behind. Holding the target by the neck, Sang smiles at the teachers and apologizes for the noise, throwing out the excuse that they are just playing cops and robbers. With the bully named I'm Ganju crying in pain on the floor, the MC snaps the photo to prove the mission was a success. The next app upload shows the body of Kim Ching-gi dumped on some random staircase after their fight. Without slowing down, the student drops 2 more targets in record time, hitting his quota for clearing out the local schools. Pinning yet another gang leader to the floor, the delivery guy gets his camera ready for the final shot of them. With the phone screen capturing Ju Janghun's totally defeated face, the massive run of aggressive deliveries is officially wrapped up. A massive pile of phones drops all at once into a huge delivery bag. Moving quick, the client zips the backpack up to keep the devices safe. Riding on the back of the yellow scooter, the girl announces there's only one spot left to finish today's order, warning him not to drop his guard at all. Taking the warning seriously, the biker watches his partner from the corner of his eye through his helmet visor. Stopped on the street with the scooter, he asks straight up if they are actually supposed to be acting like a team. The girl just stares at him silently for a sec, trying to figure out exactly what he's getting at. Breaking it down, the delivery kid promises he'll do whatever she says, but points out they have a mutual contract, and there seems to be absolutely zero communication going on. Tapping his own helmet, the teen suggests they should at least share what the actual endgame of all this is. Showing zero emotion, the boss makes it completely clear that they are not a team, and they are definitely not business partners. Staring her employee down, she emphasizes that their connection is strictly transactional, meaning anyone can drop the contract and walk away whenever. Because of that, the student concludes it's totally normal to not share info with someone who means literally nothing more than that to her. But she decides to drop the real reason she's hoarding phones, saying that the contact info for the person she's hunting has to be on one of those bullies' devices. Listening closely, the MC finds out the girl's ultimate goal is to get him delivered directly to this mystery person. Turning her head, the girl asks if that explanation is enough for him to finally get what's going on. Right at that exact second, a violent sudden impact sends the biker flying brutally through the midair. In the chaos, the student manages to grab his client to save her from taking a devastating hit on the pavement. Holding her tight, he instantly asks if she's okay after that absolute jump scare. The kid grabs his head as the dust finally starts settling around them. As soon as the immediate danger drops, the girl pushes off his chest fast, trying to process what just went down. Looking at the wrecked street, the boss scowls, completely furious at the situation. Still on the ground, the biker groans in pain and announces that he is absolutely not okay. The reason he's losing his mind is that his precious yellow scooter just got totally flattened in the crash, making the kid remember he still has 28 payments left on it. Inside a nearby truck, the blonde bully from earlier points angrily, confirming those are the guys who stole his phone. Mad at the driver next to him, the bully yells asking how he fumbled blocking them so badly, asking if the guy even wants to get paid for the gig. Trying to cover up his mistake, the older guy in the blue cap apologizes to the kid, making the excuse that it's been a minute since his last job around here and he's just a little rusty. Stepping out of the truck totally chill, the driver tells the blonde client to just wait inside for a sec. Right after, he unlocks and yanks open the back door of the delivery truck. Standing in front of a bunch of stacked boxes in the dark, the older dude promises he's going to make the delivery and send the targets straight to the client. On the street, the screen of one of the collected phones is shown completely shattered from the crash. Checking the busted phone in her hands, the student realizes with dread that every single phone they bagged got completely destroyed in the hit. Looking ahead, the client notices things just managed to get even worse. Spotting the logo on the side of the truck, she curses their luck that they had to run into that specific delivery company. Stressed about the threat, the girl warns the delivery boy to be insanely careful stepping up, because this is definitely not your average business. Totally ignoring the warning, the MC yells to get the older guy's attention by the truck. Completely blinded by rage, the teen demands the guy pay up for his totaled scooter unless he wants to get seriously messed up. Not caring at all about the threat, the driver keeps digging through the stacked boxes deep in the truck. Searching his stash, he tosses a few options aside, muttering that none of them fit the vibe right now. Finally, the older man finds exactly what he was looking for and yanks an object out of the mess. Hopping out with a long wooden box, the veteran mentions he hasn't used this gear in a long time and decides it's time to bring it out today. Totally triggered, the teen explains that his ride was fully customized and it was a super tough choice to buy it just 2 months ago. Rushing and furious for an attack, the student warns he's also gonna charge a massive fee for all the emotional damage he just took. With insane reflexes, the older man uses a long staff to totally stuff the kid's attack midair. Pulling his weapon back, the driver complains he's super out of practice and totally lost his touch for scaling his strength. Super confident, the veteran makes it clear the rookie biker gets 0 credit for that defense, surviving only because the attack barely missed. Looking at the kid's fist, the older man warns that acting this reckless is gonna seriously shorten his career in this underground game. With the impact, the delivery kid's fist hits the floor, creating a literal crater, while his opponent says he should have dodged instead of trying to tank it straight on. The MC slowly stands up in total silence, letting the blood drip from his busted hand. Finding the whole thing funny, the older man says he totally gets the kid's vibe, since young guys are always hot-headed and trying to flex. Noticing the kid's tense stance, the driver drops some lore that he's seen plenty of boys lose control of that fire and end up in a really bad spot. Cutting the lecture short, the student looks up and dares his opponent to swing that staff one more time. Locked onto the enemy, the biker explains he miscalculated the distance because it's been a minute since he fought someone with a long weapon, promising he'll block it perfectly this time. Hit with that crazy bold taunt, the older man's chill expression instantly shifts into a super intense glare. Wasting no time, the veteran winds up for a devastating new strike, yelling again that trying to show off like that is a death wish. Jumping crazy high, the man brings his weapon crashing down full force right at the kid. In a fraction of a second, the MC's arm moves at terrifying speed to intercept the hit. Using pure brute strength, he smashes into the wooden weapon midair, causing a massive shockwave. The guy in the blue cap's eyes go wide in absolute shock, seeing his attack get totally stuffed head-on. Gripping the shattered pieces of the weapon tightly, the teen announces he's finally got the timing down. Overflowing with confidence, the biker guarantees once again that he fully understands the reaction time needed for this exact match. Dropping the broken wood on the ground, he tells his opponent to come at him with something else, promising he'll block and break whatever he throws. Frozen in his tracks, the veteran driver stares at the shattered end of his own staff in pure disbelief. Looking at the splintered wood, he lets out a quiet sigh, finally respecting the kid's insane brute strength. Resting the broken weapon on his shoulder, the veteran admits that looking at the kid is exactly like looking at his younger self, risking his life on pure guts. Suddenly, the older man reveals a razor-sharp blade hidden inside the handle, admitting that looking back, he has 0 clue how he even survived that era. With a slick movement, the older guy adjusts his footwork to drop into a way more dangerous fighting stance. Looking back at the truck, he calls out to the blonde bully super casually, telling the kid he's gonna have to jump in and help with the fight. Seeing his client absolutely panicking, the driver tells him to stop freaking out over nothing and get over there to assist already. Desperate in the truck window, the bully screams, reminding him that he's the paying customer, calling it completely ridiculous to take orders and demanding a full refund. Losing his patience with the tantrum, the veteran yeets a piece of wood, shattering the truck window inches from the coward's face. To traumatize the blonde kid even more, the driver asks if he's ever worked a part-time job, guessing the boy was totally spoiled his whole life. Shaking his head, the older man complains that parents ruin their kids, pointing out that a healthy teen like him has 0 experience with an actual hard day's work. Cornered, the client swallows hard as the man asks if he knows how to load boxes, getting a super terrified yes in return. Right at that distracting moment, the boss yells the MC's name at the top of her lungs in the middle of the street. Startled by the random yell, the delivery kid glances over his shoulder to check on his partner. Dead serious, the student reminds the boy he's still on the clock, demanding he doesn't let his ego ruin the job and tells him to act like a professional. The client doesn't hold back, warning that the enemy has way too much of an advantage to be fought with just brute force, ordering the kid to fall back and read the room. Confident in his carry, the delivery guy just claps back that throwing hands is literally his domain. Triggered by his audacity, the boss raises her voice and demands he doesn't even think about trying to lecture her. Annoyed by her yelling, the biker complains about how aggressively the girl talks to him, just as he notices a massive weapon flying his way. Reacting instantly, he blocks a heavy hit midair, causing a huge collision. The threat turns out to be a giant, spiked iron ball attached to a chain, swinging around looking incredibly deadly. The veteran driver yanks the weapon back hard, spinning the chain with insane power to try and completely crush the teen. But the older guy loses control of the heavy ball for a second and realizes he completely missed his target. The flail smashes straight into a streetlight, and the kid mocks him, asking if he plans on leveling the whole city just to finish his delivery. Crouched in the street after dodging, the student admits he's actually loving the enemy's unhinged energy. Blown away by the kid's durability, the veteran stares at his own damaged gear, wondering what kind of crazy material his opponent's fists are made of. Frustrated by the lag, the older man yells at the blonde client to throw the stuff faster, reminding him they can't leave any gaps in their combo. Sweating and completely out of breath, the coward throws the boxes, crying that the driver has no idea how to work and telling him to do the heavy lifting himself. With zero patience for crying, the older man coldly states that if the kid stops one more time, he's fired on the spot. Absolutely furious about the threat, the bully keeps chucking the inventory in a mix of pure rage and panic. With the teen spamming boxes from the truck, the driver resets his fighting stance, grumbling that kids today have absolutely zero grind. One of the packages cuts through the air at high speed straight into the fight zone. Using the throw as a distraction, the veteran rushes in full force while the delivery kid dodges the flying junk. Pure reflex takes over and the biker throws a devastating punch into one of the boxes, shattering everything in his way. Seeing how fast the kid is, the older man locks onto the opening he just created. Quick on his feet, he impales one of the packages with the sharp end of his custom weapon. In a slick move, the older dude uses the box stuck on his staff to add crazy weight to his next swing. The MC reacts instantly, tanking the heavy impact head-on. Feeling the insane pressure of the strike, the kid glares up sharply through his helmet visor. On the flip side, the opponent stays totally chill, completely locked into the chaotic rhythm of the fight. Spinning the heavy weapon again, the older man chains his direct hits, with the boxes still raining down from the truck. Refusing to back down, the student blocks another brutal rush that literally shakes the air around them. In the back, the coward client keeps spamming the inventory like his life depends on it, running completely on empty. Using the cover fire, the driver unleashes a crushing combo trying to completely trap the kid. Pressured by the non-stop spam, the biker crosses his arms to tank the opponent's absolute rage. Ripping through the cardboard like it's nothing, a straight punch breaks right through the decoy box. A millisecond later, the kid pushes forward kicking through the debris, catching the veteran totally off guard. The delivery kid lands firmly on the pavement, cracking the ground and dropping into an epic stance. Overwhelmed by the kid's strength, the older man grits his teeth, realizing the situation is totally spiraling out of control. In a desperate play, the driver uses a massive traffic sign attached to his weapon for an ultimate attack. Throwing his entire body weight into the move, he brings the heavy metal structure crashing down straight at his target. The clash is absolute insanity, forcing the student to catch the devastating hit straight to the face. The kinetic energy is so wild that the biker gets pushed backward, his feet sliding across the wrecked asphalt. Panting hard, the older man finally stops his barrage, relieved by the massive effort it took just to create some space. In the back of the truck, the bully collapses exhausted with his arms out, gasping that he literally threw every box he could. Across the street, the MC touches the cracked side of his helmet, declaring that the last hit totally makes up for his ruined gear. Ripping the helmet off and doing a face reveal, he coldly announces it's finally time to settle the tab for his destroyed scooter. Seeing the teen's face, the driver goes into total shock, remembering an old rule from his dark past about how people who try to flex always get folded. Triggered by the memory, the veteran grabs the brim of his cap, feeling a crushing weight hit him. His mind flashes back 30 years, remembering when he himself was an arrogant punk who told his crew to back off because he thought he could solo the job. In the flashback, his partner was telling him to stop trolling and stick to the plan, warning that playing lone wolf like that would get him wiped out. Walking confidently down a dark alley, the young guy from the past brushed off the warning, making the excuse that the target was just some corporate hire. His partner completely froze up, terrified just hearing the enemy had the backing of a massive corporation. Walking straight into the danger zone, the young dude guaranteed that suits only worked in the shadows and couldn't handle the heat of a real physical fight. Super arrogant, he declared that dying just for trying to show off only happens to untalented noobs, which definitely wasn't him. The result of his blind confidence was a total disaster zone, with the kid standing in a sea of enemies who were dropped with zero mercy. On that bloody day, a defeated leader on the ground caught his attention. On his knees and completely wrecked, the guy in the suit actually fully agreed with the young fighter's mindset. The suit confessed he was sick of hearing boomers tell him to stop showing off to stay alive, praising the kid's guts for saying it straight to his face. Flashing a twisted smile, the enemy revealed that all the old guys who tried to give him that moral lecture were already permanently logged out. To make it even scarier, he admitted he handled a bunch of them himself, deciding to spare the kid only because he missed talking to someone on his own level. Surrounded by the mess, the man proposed they both keep being as arrogant as possible for the rest of their lives, just to prove they were right. The story points out that, after that super traumatic run-in, the driver completely dropped his hand-to-hand combat style and stopped trying to flex. Quitting his old life as a flashy merc, he threw everything away and started living like a ghost, only taking low-key street jobs. The real reason he played it so safe was pure terror, the absolute fear that one day, by pure bad luck, he'd run into that unstoppable monster again. For 30 long years, the veteran did everything he could to look away from danger and keep zero aggro on the city streets. Shaking with nerves, he realizes the cruel irony of running into a kid with that exact same boss energy right in the middle of a gig. His blue cap hits the asphalt as his survival instincts scream at him to turn his back and sprint away as fast as possible. Taking a step forward, the kid pushes up relentlessly, and the older man realizes that trying to fight this tier of opponent is way out of his league. The delivery boy without his helmet drops a terrifying aura, proving that trying to fight him now would be the ultimate act of showing off. Ignoring his fear, the veteran drops into a boxing stance, throwing up his bare fists with total desperation. Surprised by the vibe switch, the teen mutters, intrigued while watching his opponent lock in for a do-or-die moment. Sweating buckets, the older guy asks himself if playing it safe his whole life was actually worth it. Clenching his fists with everything he's got, he bitterly accepts that running away to grow old in the shadows was never a respectable move. With no more second-guessing, the driver charges full speed at the kid, knowing that backing down now means living with the guilt forever. Screaming in pure rage and frustration, he throws a punch with all his power, yelling at the kid that back in the day, he used to hit just as hard. Smiling with genuine respect, the MC praises his guts, stating this is the first time today the old man actually impressed him. Putting his entire legacy into that one swing, the older man pushes past his physical limits in a raw, totally unprotected attack. Suddenly, an absolutely devastating punch lands on the driver's face with crushing brutality, instantly shutting down his push. Taking the massive hit, the older guy gets launched through the air, while the student follows through on his punch, recognizing the fallen enemy was actually a real one. With the opponent flat on the floor, the MC calmly lets him know he doesn't need to stress about paying for the ruined scooter. Turning his back, the delivery kid explains he's letting it slide because he's about to have billions in his account and is feeling super generous. Right then, the blonde bully absolutely loses his mind and starts screaming, trash-talking the two of them in the street. The kid just shoots a freezing, death glare straight at the troublemaker. Desperate, the coward client grabs the kid's boss as a hostage and threatens to do something crazy if anyone moves a muscle. The coward holds a pocket knife super dangerously close to the girl's face. Totally spiraling, the blonde demands to know where his phone is before he messes the student up. Showing literally zero fear, the girl just grabs the blade of the knife with her bare hand. Using his confusion, she lands a brutal headbutt straight into the bully's face. With the enemy stunned, the girl finishes the counter with a heavy stomp right to his knee. The hit drops the bully straight to the floor, groaning in pain while the client casually fixes her outfit. Caught totally off guard by her skills, the biker hears his boss ask if he really thought she'd pull all this off without knowing how to throw down. Super confident, she declares she won the one-on-one against the troublemaker totally solo. The street finally goes quiet again after all the chaos around the truck. Just to make sure the job is done, Lee Sang steps on the defeated blonde's head with zero mercy. The student admits he got totally jump-scared, praising her speed and asking why she even hired backup if she can fight like that. Silent, the client just turns her back and starts walking away. The ground around them is still covered in phones that got absolutely totaled during the brawl. Watching his coworker, the kid spots a major detail about her injury. Trying to cover his tracks, the delivery boy argues that this line of work is full of random accidents, and nobody is to blame for what went down. Changing the subject, he reminds her he was hired to catch hands, not to protect stuff, demanding they settle the check fairly. Keeping a firm stance, he points a finger wanting to lock down his payment. But the girl just completely ignores him and grabs her employee's hands. Checking out his bruises, The student asks straight up if the kid is okay after tanking so many heavy hits. The MC completely short-circuits at her unexpected vibe check. Obviously flustered, he confirms he's good and stutters, asking if the boss was actually worried about him. Letting out a massive sigh of frustration, the client grumbles that her coworker is unbelievably dense. Losing her patience entirely, she snaps, asking if his hands are made of steel, warning that if he gets seriously hurt, the contract is instantly cancelled. As they walk away from the wrecked street, the girl drops one last warning that she'll fire him if he acts like a noob again, which he quickly agrees to. Still a bit embarrassed from getting yelled at, the kid just lets out an awkward laugh. The veteran driver cracks a tired smile, saying being young is awesome and telling the girl to take it easy on her brave boyfriend. Looking up at the sky, the man thanks the MC for reigniting his fighting spirit, promising to live without shame from now on. The student listens quietly while the older guy offers some help, warning that just their muscle won't be enough for what's coming next. Trying to get up, the driver collapses and asks for a little help because he literally can't feel his body, but the kid cold-heartedly rejects him. Leaving the veteran in the dust, the biker complains about his totaled ride and asks how they're getting around, finding out the next drop is super close. Yelling from the background, the hurt guy warns that the two of them are going to end up losing their lives at this rate. Sprawled on the asphalt, the veteran drops the bomb that the kids' names just hit the system's ultra-dreaded priority delivery list. Confused by the term, the teen stops walking and asks his boss what the heck that means. The girl looks stressed and mutters that things are moving way too fast. Salty they have zero time to come up with a new strat. Annoyed at being ignored, the delivery guy raises his voice and demands to know if his client is the target of this special delivery. The priority system is basically an open hunt, where any logged-in merc on the app can snipe the job and whoever finishes first gets the bag. With a super dark look, the girl explains that being on this list means they just became a public target for every fighter in the city. The veteran finishes the explanation, guaranteeing that from now on they'll be hunted non-stop, 24 hours a day. At first, the kid drops his head, looking totally shocked by the reality of having a massive bounty on them. But literally a second later, he breaks into a massive, hyped smile, claiming this scenario is absolutely perfect. Clapping his hands in excitement, the MC celebrates that the enemies will just come straight to him, saving time, and thanks his boss for the legendary opportunity. In a totally unhinged mix of crazy and happy, he goes back to stepping on the blonde bully, wishing for stronger opponents and asking the veteran to team up. The older guy on the floor just smiles and tells the kid to keep dreaming. Shutting the moment down, the student coldly states the guy will never join their squad, telling him to stop interrupting her business. Unfazed, the veteran defends himself saying he's a pro who only works for cash and doesn't mix feelings with his gigs. Suddenly, an object hits the floor right next to the hurt guy's head. The item the girl threw turns out to be a heavy leather dog collar. Holding her hand out like a dictator, the client says she'll let the veteran join, but only if he's down to be her literal guard dog. The older guy's eyes go wide, totally shook by the teen's humiliating offer. Right after, he flashes an awkward smile and jokes that if he was younger, he wouldn't even hide his feelings for her. Rolling his eyes, the delivery kid complains he can't stand these cringe lines anymore, telling his boss to just drop the next order already. Locked in on the goal, the girl warns that their time is running out since they're on the priority list, pointing out they still have one last stop. Wasting zero time, the girl aggressively straps the thick collar right onto the blonde bully's neck. Gripping the leash tight, the client declares she'll use the troublemaker to make up for all the phones they lost in the fight. Her glare turns insanely intimidating as she remembers all the crucial data that got wiped when the phones shattered. Terrified, the bully swallows hard while the girl promises she's going to beat every detail she needs out of him. The sun starts setting, painting the sky and the city buildings in a heavy orange. Standing in front of their final drop, the biker asks if this is really the last delivery zone of their massive run. Checking her phone, the boss confirms it and warns that this is going to be the most dangerous mission of the entire day. The kid notices the familiar spot and complains that, hard or not, the location is literally their own high school. Salty about the extra detour, he whines they could have just handled this from the start, demanding his perfect attendance award back. The girl claps back that leaving this spot for last was a big brain move, since wrecking the other schools created the perfect chaos they needed. Back in action, the veteran driver pops up smiling, letting them know he followed orders and tied the package up perfectly. The so-called package is the blonde bully, who's squirming around completely tied up with ropes in the back of the delivery truck. Joking around, the older man offers to be a human shield if things go south, earning a sarcastic compliment from the client for his boldness. Annoyed by them acting all buddy-buddy, the delivery guy roasts the age gap and tells the old man to show him some respect too. Totally changing his vibe, the MC catches the scent of blood and guesses a massive brawl already went down inside. Keeping her ice-cold composure, the client simply confirms she totally expected this hostile setup. Next to the main school gate, a random delivery scooter is parked quietly, proving another fighter is already in the building. The duo's focus shifts to the fifth-floor window where the student council room is, marking their absolute final boss arena. Checking out the school window, the biker notices the room is usually blocked by dark curtains, finding it super sus that minutes ago everything was lit up and wide open. Walking through the empty hallway with the squad, the delivery boy quickly figures out someone beat them to the punch to sabotage their mission. With her usual cold look, the boss drops a second theory, saying that maybe they are the actual targets of this ambush. Out of nowhere, a mystery voice echoes down the hall agreeing with both theories, as a guy in a white jumpsuit walks toward them. The newcomer complains they took forever, casually dropping the bomb that he already dealt with everyone in the student council room. Showing absolutely zero guilt, the weirdo in the helmet jokes that he got so bored waiting, he just wandered the school to pack up the other students too. Totally shook by the intruder's unhinged vibe, the veteran driver points out there wasn't a single student left except the council members. Annoyed by the guy's attitude, the man in the blue cap steps up, grumbling that this is just another idiot who can't follow the basic rules of the hustle. The veteran goes off on the merc, explaining that doing random stuff off-app totally breaks the unwritten code of their job. In a flash, the guy in the white jumpsuit makes a lethal, high-speed move right at the older man's extended hand. Capitalizing on the surprise, the enemy lands a flawless, brutal hit, completely severing the driver's arm mid-sentence. With absolute zero chill, the merc tells the veteran to stop yapping nonsense and warns him to never point his finger like that again. The shock hits instantly, and the guy in the blue cap stumbles backward, in absolute agony from the devastating injury. Not caring at all about the man's state, the mystery guy checks his own phone, making it clear he doesn't mess with weaklings and telling the veteran to get out of his way. Reading his app, he admits he almost dodged the gig at first, thinking it was totally pathetic to get called in just to catch some random schoolgirl. But his entire mood shifted the second he opened the file and saw the pic of the main target they sent. Flashing a creepy smile under his helmet, the merc admits he got insanely hyped by what he saw. The screen shows the client's file, but the thing that actually caught the villain's eye was the MC's face chilling in the background of the pic. Totally locked onto the kid, the guy in the white jumpsuit calls the delivery boy by his name with a super toxic, intimate tone. Tilting his head forward with pure sarcasm, the enemy casually greets the student, pointing out it's been a minute since they last hung out. The MC keeps his expression totally dead and tense, while the guy claims they are old bros who share the exact same vibe. Feeling the gravity of that drop, Lee Sang looks down in silence, letting a heavy shadow completely cover his eyes. Feeling the suffocating tension in the room, the client steps forward, breaking the heavy mood and turning her focus to her employee. The bruised girl glares at the kid suspiciously, repeating the word friend in a super dry, questioning tone. Uncomfortable with the whole thing, the student demands a quick explanation, warning him he never mentioned having ties to someone this sketchy. Dodging the conversation, the biker just looks away, giving a super vague answer that they aren't exactly friends like the guy is making it sound. The girl squints, totally frustrated by the dodge, feeling like her coworker is hiding major lore at the worst possible time. Before the girl can demand more answers, the delivery guy moves incredibly fast and steps in front of her, dropping into a protective stance against the enemy. Finding the whole thing hilarious, the guy in the white jumpsuit asks if the kid is doing escort missions now, teasing if the girl is his girlfriend or something. Shooting a freezing look over his shoulder, Sang clears up that she's just his client, and he's only doing this strictly for the bag at the end. Shoving his boss behind him, the delivery kid demands the merc leave the girl out of it and settle their beef one-on-one right here. Hearing the kid's demand, the helmet guy's smile vanishes instantly, swapping it for an insanely focused glare. Rejecting the offer on the spot, the enemy rushes down the hall at terrifying speed, trash-talking the kid's ego. Totally ignoring the MC, the villain zeroes in on the girl and throws a massive punch, forcing the student to tank the brutal hit head-on to block it. With their fists locked in the clash, the guy in the jumpsuit mocks the absolute joke of seeing his old partner try to play the hero for someone. Using the opening in the kid's guard, the merc jumps effortlessly over the boy's defense, winding up a direct strike at the client. The bruised girl's eyes go wide and she throws her arms up fast, trying to block the incoming hit from wrecking her face. Flexing completely inhuman reflexes, the MC manages to grab the enemy's leg just millimeters before it connects, shutting down the rush instantly. Holding the enemy pinned in midair, the student hears the villain ask in a super toxic tone if he forgot who they really are. Looking down at the kid, the guy in the jumpsuit highlights the violent nature they both share in the underground fighting scene. Being insanely cruel, the merc brings up major trauma, reminding the teen about the tragic ending of everyone he ever tried to protect back in the day. The taunt hits a massive nerve, and the delivery kid's eyes fill with absolute rage as he asks if the enemy seriously held onto this grudge for that long. Slickly sliding out of the grip, the villain backs up admiring the kid's ridiculous brute strength, admitting he's still totally cracked. Giving the teen zero room to breathe, the enemy unleashes a totally cracked combo of lightning-fast punches. Pressured by the spam, Sang tries to guard the absolute storm of hits, while his rival flexes about having better mechanics and speed. Controlling the pace of the fight, the guy in the suit admits they never tested who would win in a fair one-on-one, but he guarantees that the client being there totally seals the kid's fate. Landing a clean hit, the merc complains the kid just ghosted everyone and cut contact just to play pretend as a normal student at this trash school. With a smile of pure disgust, the villain declares that living this NPC life is exactly what made the MC so weak. The delivery kid locks in his gaze, just listening to his rival confidently state that this peaceful vibe will never suit him. Dropping a weird invite, the merc tells the kid to come back to the dark side, while the boss watches the whole thing super closely. In the middle of the mess, the girl looks down at her hand and notices some thick drops of blood on her fingers. Instantly, the student's eyes get super sharp as she calculates a brand new strat right in the middle of the chaotic brawl. Showing absolutely zero fear of the threat, she takes a bold step toward the fight, totally down to crash the party. Catching a blind spot, the girl jumps recklessly and latches onto the guy in the white jumpsuit's back with everything she has. Totally jump-scared by the random weight, the merc stops his combo and gives her a side-eye, completely confused by her unhinged play. On the other side, the biker's eyes go wide, absolutely shook by his boss's crazy move to throw herself into danger like that. Trying to shake her off, the villain laughs and trolls the girl, asking if this is some weird Riz tactic and wondering if the MC actually fell for it. Right next to the enemy's ear, the student whispers with a super toxic voice, calling him out for calling her dead weight earlier. With her bloodshot eyes glowing, she aims her fingers straight at the dude's helmet visor, daring him to say it to her face again. Realizing the girl is actually out for blood, the merc panics, his eye going wide seeing the legit danger of her counterplay. Running purely on survival instinct, the guy in the white jumpsuit moves fast and grabs the student's wrist before she can ruin his face. Using his totally unfair strength advantage, he yanks the girl off his back and throws her over his shoulder with a heavy grunt. As the girl loses her balance and drops, the villain groans in pain and threatens to make this annoying client pay for her absolute disrespect. Grabbing his own side, the merc checks the damage the girl actually managed to pull off during her crazy surprise attack. Capitalizing on that tiny window of distraction, Lee Sang rushes in furious and lands a devastating tackle right into the enemy's midsection. Pinning the enemy to the floor, the kid hears the villain admit their totally suicidal strat was actually good, finding their duo insanely interesting. Leaning on her knees to catch her breath, the boss confirms it was all part of the plan, flexing with pride that Shed never let herself be a liability to anyone. Throwing his whole weight into keeping his rival locked on the floor, the delivery guy pushes down hard while the dude tries to keep yapping. Standing tall right behind her employee, the student makes sure to tell the defeated enemy that she has absolutely zero romantic ties with the biker. The camera suddenly cuts, zooming in on thick drops of blood hitting the clean school floor from a badly wrecked hand. The veteran driver in the blue cap is shown sweating bullets, grinding his teeth trying to tank the absolute agony of his injury. On his knees in the empty hall, the older man hears the MC calling out to him super casually. Chilling nearby, the teen suggests the guy pick his own arm up off the floor, letting him know there's still time to get that fixed. Completely lost, the veteran looks up stuttering, asking if a reattachment like that is actually a real thing. Acting like it's no big deal, the delivery kid confirms it, promising he knows a totally legit spot that handles this kind of damage with zero issues. The girl just turns her back and starts walking down the hall, while the delivery kid tells her to hold up and asks where she's bouncing to now. Locked in, the girl explains she's trying to hunt down a phone that still works, salty that it's probably too late. The MC points out that the guy on the floor might look like a mess, but he's actually super calculating. Hearing that, the boss figures out that if the enemy checked their pockets first, he definitely smashed the phones of every single witness he ran into. The student warns her that the way this guy works is always an absolute disaster, giving a heads up that the student council room must be completely trashed. The client stops walking and looks over her shoulder, telling the kid to stay in his lane and asking why he's suddenly so obsessed with her mental. Triggered by her toxic reply, the biker points a finger and complains that she picks a fight even when he's literally just trying to check on her. Cutting the argument short, the girl points her finger straight at the knocked-out guy on the floor. Super suspicious, the student asks if her employee is actually calling this absolute psycho a friend. Losing his chill, Lee Sang mutters a curse and firmly repeats that the dude is 100% not his friend. The merc in the helmet lets out a toxic laugh from the floor, praising the girl's question and asking the delivery guy what they actually are to each other then. The villain himself suggests that if he had to label their vibe, he'd call the kid a stalker. Totally grossed out by the thought, the teen tells the guy to go screw himself, finding that comparison way too weird and unhinged. Being super sarcastic, the enemy explains they just ran into each other a few times at their old gig, but the kid was always picking fights and following him around constantly. He keeps trolling, saying that is literally the dictionary definition of friendship, which makes the MC grab him by the collar asking if he wants to get put back to sleep. Locked down, the villain warns the girl she's hanging with the wrong crowd, guaranteeing the delivery boy is a massive red flag. Turning his head, the helmet guy taunts his old coworker, asking if he even realizes he's escorting someone sitting at the absolute top of the country's power ranking. Dropping a massive lore bomb, the merc exposes that the client is actually the daughter of the legendary Xiang Jionqiu. The biker is completely lost, repeating the name and asking who the heck that is, leaving the enemy totally mind-blown by how clueless he is. The student herself admits the situation is super heavy, mentioning she has zero clue how her contractor ended up mixed up with someone on her level. Ignoring the girl, the guy in the white jumpsuit tells the MC to head over to the Xiancheng district and look for someone named Yongjian. Giving a toxic little chuckle, he guarantees that maybe then the kid will finally find out who actually took out his dad. The enemy keeps instigating like a troll, asking if that tip was super helpful and telling the kid to admit it. As an immediate reply, the teen shoves his opponent's face into the school floor with all his might. Annoyed by the brutal hit, the villain trash-talks the student, while the delivery kid yells in pure rage, asking if the dude thinks he can just name-drop his dad like that. The bandaged girl steps up with a menacing glare, demanding the merc spill everything he knows before she totally loses her cool and finishes him off for good. Not showing an ounce of fear, the guy bursts out laughing and rejects the order, telling the girl to figure the rest out with her little boyfriend from here on out. Absolutely losing her mind over the disrespect, the boss charges in furious to beat down the fallen enemy without a shred of mercy. Quick on his feet, Li Sang steps in and grabs his partner's arm, warning her that things have already gone way too far and telling her to chill. The client turns her face in disbelief, pointing out that the bad guy is clearly trying to cover for our boy because he thinks they're cut from the same cloth at the end of the day. The biker disagrees on the spot, explaining that this dude is never going to open his mouth to confess anything because he was literally raised to withstand any kind of interrogation. Super calm, he warns her that even if she keeps swinging with all her might, she won't be able to take him down and will only end up wearing out her own arm for nothing. Keeping a straight face, the student advises his client that it would be way smarter to start brainstorming the team's next move. To wrap things up, the MC gives the girl a light tap on the shoulder, nudging her to get the heck out of there as soon as possible. The school hallway gets tense again, leaving the white jumpsuit merc dumped on the floor while the duo evaluates the situation. The scene cuts to the vibrant neon lights of a famous shopping street, showing that the mess is already blowing up to epic proportions all over town. Inside a super fancy room, a high-end smartphone starts buzzing like crazy on a table. A hand dripping with flashy rings picks up the device, where the glowing screen shows a notification that a new priority delivery is up for grabs in the system. The owner of the phone is an elegant and incredibly intimidating woman, casually puffing away on a long traditional pipe. Exuding absolute boss energy, the woman announces to everyone in the room that they just snagged a majorly important request. Scanning the info, the leader decides that the girl in the contract seems extremely useful, demanding they capture her without leaving a single scratch on her. Walking past a floor covered in knocked-out defeated guys, the crew boss warns them that, as for the kid in the photo, they need to take him down without holding back. Piercing through the smoke with a sharp gaze, the mystery woman gives the final order for her subordinates to wrap up the mission with total class. Somewhere else, the veteran driver pops up tied up in the back of a delivery truck, looking absolutely defeated. Completely immobilized next to the old man, the white merc complains about the embarrassing setup, asking what the old guy is staring at and calling the whole thing totally ridiculous. With the prisoners securely tucked away, the delivery guy slams the truck doors shut, locking the enemy duo in the pitch black. Sitting in the driver's seat, the veteran double-checks the mission instructions, wanting to make sure the job is just to drop these guys off at that address and confirming if they can actually fix his sliced hand there. The teenager explains that the place looks like a regular old hospital from the outside, telling the old man to just drop his name at the front desk so they can sort out the rest of the mess. Already walking alongside his client, the biker throws one last warning over his shoulder, telling the driver not to try anything funny on the way. The older guy plays it cool, pointing out he already got his delivery fee up front and has zero reasons to break their trust, telling the kid to just relax. As the heavy ride rolls away through the dark streets, the young girl stops in her tracks and turns to face her employee. With a lightning-fast move, the boss tosses a small object straight at the kid's hands. The student snatches the item out of the air like a pro, looking surprised and super confused at the ignition key he just caught. The bandaged girl reminds him that his old yellow scooter is completely totaled, ordering him to use this new ride instead. Staring at the thing in his own hand, the MC takes a few seconds of absolute silence to process the info. He gets hyped out of his mind, realizing he just scored a brand new vehicle from his rich client. Calling the student his boss with peak enthusiasm, the kid showers her with compliments and celebrates the awesome perks of the job. Instantly, the girl coldly bursts his bubble, clarifying that the bike actually belongs to the merc who jumped them a little while ago. She explains she just swiped the key from the dude's pocket when she jumped on his back during the brawl in the school hallway. Losing all his joy in a split second, Lee Sang pockets the key and bitterly announces that his delivery shift for the day is officially wrapped up. Pushing the heavy stolen bike, the delivery boy complains that his former coworker has awful taste in rides, feeling gross just thinking about driving it. Frustrated with the vibe, he swears to buy a brand new bike the second he gets paid for the mission, grumbling that the merc is filthy rich, and the girl decided to steal a total piece of junk. Stopping in the middle of a dark path, the student claims he's way too burnt out to walk the boss home safely, suggesting she just handle the rest of the trip solo. The girl doesn't take the dismissal lightly and simply asks why he's bringing this up out of nowhere. Chilling comfortably on the back of the bike, the client drops the bomb like it's no big deal, saying she's heading to his place anyway and suggesting they ride together. The teenager freezes right in his tracks, trying to process the absolute insanity of that curveball. A second later, the biker hits peak panic mode, yelling desperately to figure out why on earth this girl wants to crash at his pad. Keeping her flawless cool, the student calls her employee an idiot and reminds him of the wrecked state her apartment was left in the day before, asking how she could possibly go back to a trashed and sketchy place. The boss argues that things just leveled up in a bad way, since being on the app's priority hit list means she's a walking target 24/7. Mind blown, the MC points at his own chest complaining that this logic makes zero sense to him, but the girl promises it's all part of the deal. With a bossy tone, she highlights the main rule of the contract. No matter the time or place, the bodyguard is strictly required to be right by her side. Staring the kid down with an intense, reddish glare, the client demands to know if he actually had the nerve to forget such a vital condition of their partnership. Totally cornered by the very terms he agreed to earlier for the cash, the student can't even put together a comeback to fight her decision. Ready to end the debate, the girl slaps the bike's soft seat and orders her employee to start the engine already. Defeated and running on zero energy to keep arguing, the guy drops his head exhausted, asking if his partner even realizes the craziness she just proposed. Totally outraged by the absurd order, the teen warns that a woman going to the house of a guy who lives alone has some majorly dangerous implications. Keeping his defensive stance, he asks if she's 100% sure that nothing is gonna happen, pointing out that nobody can predict the future. The boss just shoots the kid a cold stare, casually admitting that she doesn't think she could be that certain about the situation either. Without showing a single drop of hesitation, the young girl simply tells her employee to go ahead with whatever he has in mind, leaving him completely baffled. Already sitting pretty on the back of the stolen bike, the student repeats the order supernaturally, telling him to do whatever he wants with her. The client even follows up by claiming that if it helps him with the future deliveries he has to make, she's totally cool with letting him act however he sees fit. Hearing that absolute madness, the delivery boy is left speechless, shook by his classmate's extreme lack of chill. Frustrated and feeling like he lost the argument, he grips the handlebars tight and mutters a curse under his breath. Looking back, Lee Sang claps back saying the girl isn't his type in the slightest, mostly because he finds her whole attitude completely bizarre. The second they step into his tiny apartment, the guy tosses a blanket at his classmate and warns her he only has one pillow, telling her to figure out the rest. Right after, he locks the deadbolt to make sure they're secure for this super stressful night. On the way over, the student made a point to mention his bathroom didn't even have a bidet, trying his hardest to scare the girl off. The humble apartment building where the teen lives is in a super quiet neighborhood, a massive contrast to the absolute chaos they just walked out of. Already sprawled out on the floor of his basic room, the biker tries to decompress by scrolling on his phone, but the day's stress is still sitting heavy on him. The panic comes roaring back when he checks his investment app and sees his portfolio just tanked nearly 100%, flushing all his cash down the drain. Clutching his own stomach, the kid groans in pain and tries to wrap his head around how the boss just waltzed into his house like that, calling the girl a total psych. In the corner of the room, the client just sits on the floor hugging her knees, while the guy keeps fiddling with his phone, restless as ever. The young girl takes in the humble vibes in total silence, looking out of place and not really knowing how to act in there. Resting his head on his hand, the student gets more and more ticked off by his partner's passivity, feeling like this whole setup is driving him insane. The memory of the girl telling him to do whatever he wanted with her keeps playing on an endless loop in the teenager's head. The fresh memory of the bike ride just proves how much her cold and submissive attitude caught him totally off guard. Mentally drained, he wonders if this is how a nervous breakdown starts, admitting to himself that he brought the absolute worst person into his house. Watching his classmate from a distance, the delivery boy gets a terrible gut feeling that staying involved with her is gonna end in a massive disaster. With a super determined look, he promises himself that the second he gets that fat payout, he's ghosting this place without looking back. On the other side, the bandaged student just keeps staring at him with a blank, unreadable expression, making the weird vibe in the room even worse. Rubbing his hair in frustration, Sang tries to shake off the bad thoughts and snap back to reality, asking out loud what his boss is even doing. Checking the food delivery app, the guy notices his fried chicken is dropping in 5 minutes, figuring this whole mental breakdown is just because he's starving. Glued to her own phone, the young girl mentions the delivery is almost here and casually notes she prefers the seasoned version of the dish. Turning to her coworker, the girl drops the bomb that this will be her first time ever having delivery chicken, bummed out that he already ordered before she could pick her flavor. The biker's eyes go wide and he turns his head in total shock, asking how it's even possible for someone her age to have never eaten that before. The boss calmly explains she's had similar dishes before, but clarifies that her family's housekeeper was an elite chef. Taking a trip down memory lane, she mentions her dad never allowed outside food, so she grew up eating epic home-cooked feasts every single day and genuinely loved it. With a soft, nostalgic smile, the young girl confesses that, beyond all the luxury she had, there was something she valued way more back then. The absolute best part of her day was the simple fact that her dad always made a point to come home and eat dinner with her, even if it was the only time they saw each other. But the vibe gets heavy when the client mentions there was one specific day when that perfect routine completely fell apart for good. The girl remembers the text from her dad saying he wouldn't make it to dinner because of a sudden emergency at work. That same night, the housekeeper also had an emergency, leaving the teenager totally alone in the massive luxury penthouse. Killing time watching TV, she saw a food commercial that looked insanely good to someone who was starving. Gulping hard, the student says this was the first and only time she decided to use a delivery app, exactly 2 years ago. Phone in hand, she walked eagerly through the huge living room the second the doorbell rang, signaling her meal had finally arrived. On the other side of the massive front door of the penthouse, a muffled voice simply announced it was a delivery. Hyped for the new experience, the girl answered right back, letting them know she was on her way to get the door. Reaching for the doorknob with confidence, she asked for a second while she unlocked the front entrance. The moment the door popped open, a terrifying figure rocking a helmet and biker gear barged into the apartment completely out of nowhere. The young girl's eyes went wide with pure terror as she instantly realized this dude was definitely not there to drop off food. The home invader was holding some random plastic bag, totally hiding his face behind a dark motorcycle helmet. The craziest detail of that awful night was the delivery app logo slapped right on the chest of the bad guy's jacket. Snapping back to the present, the boss looks the MC dead in the eyes and coldly asks if he seriously thinks all of this is just some random coincidence. The memory of the paralyzing fear from that day still haunts the girl whenever she thinks about it. Narrating the tragedy, the student reveals that her first time ever ordering delivery ended in a super violent way. That was the exact same day her dad was attacked and brutally taken down right inside his own office. With a firm tone, the client claims the fake delivery guy who showed up at the penthouse door was wearing the exact same uniform as the boy. Without breaking eye contact, she declares that the mystery attacker looked way too much like Lee Sang himself. Standing in the middle of the room with his hands in his pockets, the teenager seriously agrees that this whole connection is definitely not a coincidence. Sighing heavily, the delivery boy mutters a curse, feeling the massive weight of the problem he just dove headfirst into. Staring at his partner, the biker complains that this entire situation just turned into a gigantic headache for him. Suddenly, the kid shifts his stance and sharpens his hearing, warning that there are at least 2 people pulling up outside and it is definitely not their food. Throwing his orange jacket on in a flash, the student grumbles that this is exactly why he didn't want the boss there, sarcastically asking if he's gonna have to pay the late-night fee for this mess himself. Turning his back on the girl, the MC coldly warns that, with this whole story, she just became a prime suspect in his book too. The bandaged girl just watches her employee getting ready for a brawl, keeping her signature unreadable expression locked on her face. The delivery boy makes it crystal clear that if he finds out the girl or someone close to her set this whole thing up, things are gonna get real ugly. Keeping up the threatening vibe, he promises he won't go easy on her if he confirms he's being played in some dirty game. Moving like a rocket, the guy smashes his own window and jumps straight into the alley, screaming how unfair it is to get hit with this kind of mess right after trying to do a good deed. Landing solid on the dark concrete, the student looks up and gets a massive shock from the scene waiting outside. The alley around the building is complete chaos, totally catching the biker off guard when he just expected to face a standard ambush. A tall guy rocking an elegant trench coat is holding one of the invaders by the collar, while a bunch of other goons are already knocked out cold on the ground. Totally battered, the invader getting choked out is desperately begging for help. Noticing the MC drop in, the mystery guy turns his head slightly, curious about the sudden interruption to his handiwork. Without an ounce of pity, the guy in the trench coat drops the knocked-out enemy on the ground like a sack of potatoes. Fixing his posture, the newcomer casually looks at the kid and asks straight up if he's the famous Lee Sang. Walking with super calm and confident steps, the sharp-dressed guy strolls toward the teenager in the middle of the wrecked alley. Surprising the student, the man raises his hand, offering a friendly handshake, acting like he doesn't care at all about the heavy mess around them. Flashing a polite smile, the suit formally introduces himself as Yang Jaiwoo, bringing a lot of class to the opening move. The biker stares at the guy's extended hand with a look of pure boredom and total distrust. Ignoring the man's friendly vibe, Sang tells him to move and flat-out states that he doesn't shake hands with other dudes. Prosecutor Yang Jaiwoo lowers his hand in dead silence, realizing his attempt at a greeting was completely blown off. He sarcastically agrees with the situation, seeming to already get the level of hostility coming from the kid in the orange jumpsuit. Looking closely at his own empty hand, the suit mutters that apparently he's the one being rude in this conversation. Without wasting much time, the newcomer quickly whips out a metal baton and swings a heavy strike, forcing the student to dodge. Following through on the violent swing, the trench coat guy coldly declares that the real bad manners here is the fact that the biker is still breathing. Looking bored out of his mind, the MC listens to his opponent confidently claim that he is rotten to the core and lacks basic manners. Soon enough, Yang Jaiwoo points the weapon right at his target, promising that from this exact moment on, he's taking responsibility for teaching the kid how to live. The invader's cruel promise is that the teenager is gonna spend his next few days living way worse than a stray dog. Ticked off by how ridiculous this whole thing is, the delivery boy loses his patience and curses the guy out, furious that he wrecked someone else's rented spot just to pick a fight. Fueled by anger over the property damage, the kid charges full speed at the prosecutor, winding up a devastating counterattack to pay him back. But the suit shows off some insane reflexes and manages to block the destructive impact using his metal baton without breaking a sweat. Totally caught off guard by the flawless defense, the student steps back for a second, needing a moment to process the opponent's raw strength. Seeing the enemy standing his ground firmly on the roof, the biker asks with pure disrespect what kind of weird weapon the guy is even holding. Then the kid realizes it's just a basic retractable baton, mocking the idea that the guy could actually do any real damage with a flimsy piece of metal. Suddenly, a sharp flashing pain shoots through the teenager's hand, proving in the worst way possible that the enemy's block packed a massive punch. Noticing the blood dripping from the kid's fresh wound, the elegant guy claims with a superior tone that the first thing that needs fixing around here is exactly that attitude. Playing it cool, the suit fixes his own hair and figures that so much arrogance can only come from pure ignorance about the real world. Annoyed by the boring lecture, the student just clicks his tongue, while the guy tells him not to feel bad since being flawed like that isn't exclusive to him. The enemy starts getting all philosophical, pointing out that the real problem is the social system that pumps out human trash in bulk and leaves the garbage scattered on the streets. Totally lost on where this conversation is going, the delivery boy complains about the random break-in and the nonsense speech, sarcastically asking if the suit is also a driver for the mission app. Without even waiting for a straight answer, the kid drops his rich boss's name to try and figure out the real reason for this surprise attack on his home. Instantly, Yang Jaiwoo points the metal baton again and declares with a rock-solid voice that he came here to take the girl away with him. Facing such a direct threat, the biker lets out a long sigh and remarks how insanely popular his boss is, calling it crazy how many guys are lining up to force their way into her life. Already dropping into a solid fighting stance, the MC states without skipping a beat that the young girl is his biggest paycheck right now, flat out refusing to hand over his client that easily. Totally confident in his own influence, the trench coat guy fires back that the student will agree to leave willingly, since any fate is better than rotting next to this piece of trash. The two rivals keep the tension sky high, staring each other down hard on the dark roof as they mentally prep to kick off the brawl again at any second. All of a sudden, the prosecutor's attention gets brutally ripped away from the fight, his eyes wide in shock at something that just popped up right behind the teenager. Curious about his enemy's weird reaction, the delivery boy slowly turns his head to see what on earth could paralyze such a dangerous guy like that. Right then, the rich client walks through the busted door, holding her famous bat and demanding with total authority that the two of them cut the crap this instant. Looking extremely annoyed, she harshly questions the elegant guy's actions, reminding him that she already gave strict orders banning him from popping up in her life uninvited. Confused by the super familiar way the girl just lectured the guy, the biker just repeats the informal word she used, trying to crack the code on how these two are related. Dropping his hostile stance, the suit steps forward looking completely harmless and says, sounding super worried, that unfortunately he couldn't just let this dangerous situation slide. Out of nowhere, the elegant guy drops into full comic panic mode, begging the young girl to stop hanging out with such low-tier street trash, swearing it's literally keeping him up at night. Trying to chill the jealous dude out, the boss shoots a blank stare at her employee and promises that despite looking sketchy as heck, he's not some weird creep, revealing she planned to introduce them later anyway. Then she takes the lead with proper introductions, explaining that the guy in the trench coat is a district prosecutor who took on the job of protecting her ever since she was a little kid. Furious at the idea of playing nice with a street rat, the suit yells in disgust that he refuses to be introduced to a guy like this, threatening to beat him to a pulp until he runs away crying. As a direct response to this whole violent tantrum, the rich student simply raises her index finger in the universal gesture, demanding instant silence. With a dark glare that could send chills down anyone's spine, the girl bluntly tells the prosecutor to shut his mouth, warning him he's being way too loud in front of someone else's house. Without dropping her guard, she asks with a venomous tone if these out of control, aggressive threats are supposed to mean he's doubting her judgment. Instantly, the man loses his entire boss aura and shrinks back looking pathetic and terrified, stuttering non-stop to explain that his panic is just from genuinely caring about her well-being. Satisfied with the veteran's total submission, the boss cuts the conversation short, coldly accepting the apology before turning her back on the duo of troublemakers who wrecked the door. Already turning away from the dark roof, she orders the two of them to get inside the apartment right now and sit down like civilized people so they can start planning the next big step in their survival operation. Annoyed by the command, the prosecutor shoots a furious, threatening glare at the student, who just returns the heavy stare without flinching a muscle. Seeing no viable way out against the boss's orders, the MC lets out a long sigh and reluctantly accepts the forced truce for the sake of his $1 million payday. Inside the kid's modest room, a juicy, glowing box of fresh delivery fried chicken totally steals the spotlight on the cheap coffee table. Sitting casually on the floor, the delivery boy eagerly starts housing the food, while offering a drink to the two random guests who have hijacked his house. Across the tiny room, Yang Jiwoo sits with his arms crossed looking completely grossed out, ordering the kid to get that cheap, greasy food out of his sight. Instantly, the biker shoots him a sharp, aggressive glare, warning him that if the suit even thinks about touching his precious food, the payback is gonna be super painful. Ignoring the petty beef between the guys, the boss takes a bite of the fried chicken and decides that, even though the day was a total mess full of surprise dangers, the gamble of raiding schools paid off to reach their goal. The spot the girl drops as the team's final destination is the notorious Seoncheng district, widely known on the streets as the grimiest, most ruthless adult entertainment zone in all of South Korea. The student breaks it down in detail, explaining that the big target of this whole crazy plan is a super mysterious figure running the district's underground under the fake alias Yoongjin. Mocking the whole thing with a smirk, the young girl admits she thinks using the title of queen is totally cringe, guaranteeing it would be super embarrassing to say a nickname like that out loud in the hallways. During their makeshift dinner, the client stares at her meal looking deep in thought before dead serious, announcing the official name for the attack plan that will unite the three of them. Holding up a clean chicken bone, she declares with zero hesitation that, from this second on, their dangerous raid into enemy turf will be known as Operation Chicken Delivery. With his mouth full of food, the MC ruins the movie-like vibe, raising his hand to point out that this epic clue was literally just based on the crazy ramblings of the merc they beat up hours ago. Sketchy on how things are panning out, the kid argues that it makes zero logical sense to treat a professional hitman's tips like absolute truth, since the dude spent the whole day spinning lies. Amused by the kid's guts, the veteran prosecutor lets out a sarcastic chuckle, openly insulting the teenager's cheap logic and street slang used to voice his doubts. Highly offended by the adult's random cheap shot, the biker stops chewing and glares at the suit, demanding to know what he was just muttering under his breath. To everyone's shock, the suit is casually snacking on a piece of chicken, while guaranteeing the team already vetted the intel by crossing vital data, cynically suggesting there's still time for the kid to back out of the job. Absolutely outraged, the delivery guy yells, demanding to know why he should leave his own house, and calls the man out for stealing the food he claimed to find gross minutes ago, while the prosecutor shamelessly denies ever refusing to join the meal. Even while chewing the tender meat, Yang Jiwoo keeps dripping arrogance, heavily bashing the low quality of the off-brand food, claiming with disgust that the cheap taste completely ruined whatever appetite he had left. Unable to take the disrespect of being roasted in his own house while sharing his food, Lee Sang completely loses it and tells the duo to get the heck out of his apartment right now. Changing the subject instantly to avoid getting kicked out, the prosecutor points at the drink container and casually drops the number 78 in the air, shifting all the attention to this new intel. Sitting elegantly on the floor, the veteran drops the spooky fact that this was the exact number of hitman delivery guys who have already tried to jump the kid since the priority hit list went live that afternoon. The suit calmly explains the teenager didn't even notice the massive danger simply because his team of pros handled catching and locking up every single one of those 78 attackers before they even got close to his street. With a heavy, threatening tone, the elegant guy locks eyes with the biker and asks straight up if he has any real idea of how deadly this invisible war he blindly walked into actually is. To paint a picture of how much of a nightmare this is, the adult mentions that pretty much everyone marked on that fatal app list ends up meeting a brutal end in a super short window of 48 hours tops. The only statistical way out of getting taken down would be fleeing the country or hiring billionaire private security, which makes the MC's chill attitude while eating chicken look like pure madness and cluelessness. Dropping a major threat, Yang Jiwoo gives the final warning that the attacks won't stop, and things are gonna get way worse from here, pulling in crueler and more overpowered squads for this urban hunt. Staring down the stubborn kid, the man makes it clear he doesn't give a single rip about the life of a cocky brat, warning that the youth will soon face challenges he won't be able to punch his way out of. The real point of this exhausting chat was to shine a spotlight on the fatal doubt about whether a solo delivery boy can actually guarantee round-the-clock safety for a highly targeted heiress like his boss. Totally unbothered by the massive doom and gloom lecture he just got, the student looks bored out of his mind and bluntly states he doesn't see a reason for all this cheap panic. With the sharp, calculating look of a fighter who grew up breaking bones, the kid promises with ice-cold confidence and zero room for debate that, in the fights that actually matter, he simply never loses. The teenager's main drive to keep crushing elite enemies and defying the odds is just the simple logic that dropping the ball on the job would mean kissing his guaranteed fortune at the end of the million-dollar contract goodbye. Right in this suffocating moment full of dark reveals inside the tiny apartment, heavy, slow knocks echo from the front door, totally shattering the fake sense of safety in the room. A voice calls out from behind the busted door, letting the prosecutor know the crew is done cleaning up the whole mess from the brawl. Right after, the subordinate hints that it's finally the perfect time for the boss to head out. The prosecutor slowly turns his head, soaking in the info in total silence. Turning his back on the humble apartment, the suit gets ready to roll. Before shutting the door, Yang Jiwoo admits to the bandaged girl that her decision still makes absolutely zero logical sense in his head. Keeping a firm, serious tone, the veteran demands the student prove with her actions that she picked the right path. Gripping the doorknob hard, the prosecutor drops one last direct warning on the delivery boy, making the consequences crystal clear if he causes his client any pain. Cold as ice, the suit promises he'll finish the kid off without a second thought if anything bad goes down. With the brutal message delivered, the guy shuts the door heavy, trapping the two teens inside that tiny space. Super ticked off by the disrespect, the biker grumbles that if that arrogant trespasser shows up uninvited again, he'll be the one landing the final blow. The young boss just listens to her employee's threat without showing any reaction. Sighing from pure exhaustion, the MC takes off his dirty jacket, just wanting a little peace and quiet. Out of nowhere, Lee Sang's eyes pop wide open, completely caught off guard by the movement in the back of the room. The girl casually starts taking off her clothes like it's no big deal, dropping the deadpan excuse that she forgot to pack clean outfits for the sleepover. Totally ignoring his freakout, the client demands to borrow something to wear, claiming a hot shower is her #1 priority right now. While the heiress hogs the bathroom, the student tosses a thin blanket in the middle of the room to prep his sleeping spot. Then he chucks a pillow over the covers, throwing together an acceptable setup on the floorboards. Standing over his humble bed, the guy checks out his handiwork, knowing comfort is going to be miles away from there. The sound of the shower running catches the delivery boy's attention, and he listens to it in total silence. Through the small, fogged-up window, the sound of the water cuts through the quiet late night of the building. A few minutes later, the knob turns and the sliding door is pulled open all at once. Stepping barefoot onto the living room floor, the girl asks in disbelief if those sad options are seriously the only clothes her hired help owns. Towel drying her damp hair, the student complains about the strong, musty smell coming from her coworker's massively oversized shirt. Turning totally tomato red, the MC covers his eyes and screams, ordering the boss to put some pants on right this second. Pulling up the hem of the fabric, the client clarifies that she's already wearing short shorts, instantly diffusing the guy's panic. Getting his cool back, the biker warns that starting tomorrow, the girls' outfits need to be way more low-key to avoid unwanted attention while they're on the clock. Out of patience, he demands his partner get a solid night of sleep, even though he mutters under his breath that having her crashing there makes any real rest impossible for him. The two of them stand in the middle of the room, sharing the awkward tension of being crammed in such a tiny space. Breaking the ice, the kid harshly reminds her that the house only has one actual bed available. The bandaged girl shoots a blank stare back, waiting for the bodyguard to make a move to fix the dilemma. Crashing onto the makeshift floor bed, the delivery boy turns his head, feeling the heavy weight of exhaustion taking over his body. From the main bed, the boss coldly announces that the darkness has completely taken over the room. Tucked away in a far corner, the teenager grumbles that sharing this microscopic space is a miserable setup. Fighting against the awful setup, he tosses and turns in the blankets trying to find a decent position. Noticing the huge gap between them, the client drops a quick order banning him from staying so far away. Curled up under the sheets, she explains that being vulnerable at night draws in a ton of hidden threats against them. To keep herself safe, the student demands her protector stay well within reach from now on. With the ground rules set, she finally wishes her partner a decent night's rest. A brand new sunny day kicks off, shining down on the gorgeous traditional architecture of a super high-end restaurant. Inside the classy spot, a mature guy tosses back a shot from a small glass without even blinking. Savoring the taste, Congressman Jai Woon-soo declares that ditching work to day drink is a luxury you just can't beat. Flashing a look full of hidden intentions, the politician claims he could barely handle the wait to see his favorite company again. Busy refilling the glasses, the hostess sucks up to the client, claiming his exclusive attention fills her with deep gratitude. Chunggual, the elite employee, promises her whole existence will be dedicated to meeting the powerful man's every need. The suit lets out a loud, obnoxious laugh, loving how seductive the woman's words can be. Standing up out of nowhere, the congressman slaps the table and announces he's hit his absolute limit. Already swaying a bit from the booze, Jai Woon-soo says he's making a super quick pit stop at the restaurant's restroom. As soon as the guy steps through the doorway, the heavy door slides shut, isolating the hostess in the room. With no witnesses around, the hostess's submissive look totally vanishes, getting replaced by a cruel, calculating vibe. Hustling down the long hallway, the veteran complains about how annoying this sudden urge is. Halfway down his fast walk, the politician's attention gets grabbed by a completely crazy scene right in front of him. A guy rocking a tailored suit is keeping his head down, kneeling totally submissive on the pristine wooden floor. Recognizing the familiar face, the congressman steps closer, curious to confirm who it is. With a mocking tone, Jai Woon-soo asks what could possibly make the influential President Hyo Yonggang drop into such a humiliating pose. The businessman in sunglasses looks up panting and greets his superior with crazy respect, instantly switching to formal mode. Begging like his life depends on it, the executive pleads for one last shot to handle capturing the young heiress, swearing he'll pull off a flawless job this time. The veteran shakes his head no, calling out the subordinate's lack of action for focusing on drinks instead of making a move when it mattered. Flexing a twisted superiority complex, Jai Woon-soo points out that the wanted girl's late dad was a total legend who could steal any spotlight. To turn the disrespect up to max, the congressman crushes the executive's pride, saying the weak stumble around miserably chasing the crumbs of dead men. Wrapping up his verbal beatdown, he praises the rare few who can scrape up the leftovers and turn them into major national powerhouses. Some old memories pop up, and the veteran preaches about how the late businessman's king of the world attitude was always borderline offensive. To make the roast even worse, he asks how two college buddies ended up with bank accounts that are in totally different universes by the end of their lives. Blinded by pure rage after the brutal comparisons, the broke tycoon loses it and yells, threatening to drag everyone down with him when he falls. The congressman just laughs, mocking the overconfidence and the pathetic threat coming from a guy backed into a corner. Walking away down the hall, Jai Woon-soo decrees that empty flexing is only for the few who hold absolute power. Locked inside the fancy room, the hostess freezes her hands on her instrument strings when she hears the noise outside. Pushed past his breaking point, the kneeling executive barks a lethal order to take out the congressman right then and there. In a split second, the servant reveals a sharp blade hidden inside the fine wood of her traditional instrument. With pure deadly agility, Qingguo slashes through the paper door in a fatal strike, while the victim throws up his arm trying to block the incoming attack. The hit is undeniably violent, as the ruthless steel slices through fabric and punches right through the target's guard, leaving a mess in the room. The businessman on the floor watches the botched ambush from a distance, shaking with terror at his target's brief survival. Ignoring the victim's struggle, the assassin flashes a look of pure evil on her now twisted face. Groaning against the shredded paper door, the congressman lets out a hysterical laugh, realizing the servant was already in on the conspiracy. The hostess holds the sharp weapon dangerously at eye level and switches back to her sweet vocabulary, excusing herself for the mess she caused. Bowing gracefully to the mystery bosses in the back of the room, the woman in the blue dress asks them to accept her formal apology for the disrespectful chaos. The scene shows a gorgeous traditional Korean building sitting under a chill blue sky. Inside, the congressman struggles to stay on his feet, hurting pretty bad after the surprise hit he just took. Holding his own wound, the politician looks up in complete shock at what's going down. The hostess watches the guy collapsed in the middle of a room full of wrecked henchmen, commenting that this was supposed to be a room of pure respect. Ice cold, the woman in the blue dress guarantees she's taking full responsibility for him from here on out. Panicking at how things are turning out, the businessman begs her to stop, warning that finishing off the veteran is crossing a massive line. Right then, the politician reaches out and grabs the executive's arm in a silent cry for help. While the suit tries to shake off the grip, the hostess mocks his mercy, noting that the victim might still be useful. She suggests that before they decide his final fate, they should squeeze everything they can out of him, inviting the group to chat in the congressman's office. An older boss-level guy in a suit watches the scene looking surprised by the gutsy plan. Turning to the older man, Qingguo promises super calmly that everything is completely under control. Without a second thought, the injured politician gets dragged across the floor, totally unable to fight back. Outside, a woman in round glasses looks over her shoulder after hearing the commotion. In a courtyard full of downed guards, she holds one of the enemies and presents the spot as her business partner's turf. Smiling hyped up, the woman calls out to the hostess, letting her know she just wrapped up the cleanup outside. The hostess praises her ally's solid work, while the dragged enemy groans in pain and complains about the sheer number of people sent after him. The moment gets cut short when Qingguo's phone buzzes in her hand. Checking the device, the woman opens an alert sent by someone named Madame, featuring an attachment. The screen pops up with a photo of the student Lee Sang, flashing a red alert confirming he's the ultimate priority target. The file also drops pics of the MC standing next to his rich boss, both rocking their school uniforms. Right below that, the client's detailed profile pops up in the system. Staring hard at the intel, the woman in the blue dress processes the brand new challenge she just got handed. Outside, the boss-level man hops into the luxury car, apologizing for the mess and promising to pay the hostess back double on his next visit. With the deal sealed, the fancy ride speeds off, leaving the traditional estate behind. Throwing a coat over her party outfit, Qingguo gets the heads up from one of her guys that her ride is good to go. The woman with glasses steps up curious, asking if her partner is really heading to the dangerous Xiancheng district. With a focused, faraway look, the hostess just confirms the suspicion with a quick reply. Watching the sunset take over the city, she figures she's gonna have to pull a super late shift tonight. The scene cuts to a massive traditional entrance, showing off the brothel's territory in the Xiancheng area. In the inner courtyard, a bunch of young girls wearing traditional gear are lined up in front of a guy in a suit. Acting super harsh, the old madame uses her pipe to lift the chin of one of the terrified girls. Looking the rookie up and down, the veteran complains that her eyes are crooked and her stare has zero spark. The boss keeps trashing the girl's looks, claiming those dry lips wouldn't catch anyone's attention. Tapping her pipe on the rookie's shoulder, the woman calls out her awful posture and declares she's useless for entertaining important VIPs. Spitting pure disrespect, the old boss claims this one wouldn't even cut it for the lowest janitor gig in the place. Furious at the garbage tier of the group, Madame demands the guy in charge explain the reason for this absolute disaster. Sweating bullets, the suit apologizes for dropping the ball, making excuses about a massive issue at the partner schools and promising to fix it ASAP. Before the guy can even finish his sentence, a massive punch rocks him, sending the dude flying through the air in a totally devastating hit. The attacker is a muscle-bound giant in a suit, who scolds his coworker for daring to make excuses to Madame like that. Smacking the pipe against her own hand, the old leader grumbles that this incompetence is exactly why the guy is still just a useless errand boy. Flexing her cruelty, the woman demands a fix for the lack of girls, telling him he should have brought in even younger kids if the main plan tanked. Right at that tense moment, a loud noise echoes from the estate's main gate. The heavy wooden doors swing open, revealing a young guy's silhouette standing against the sunlight. Walking into the courtyard with max confidence, the MC rolls up wearing his signature orange jacket. Annoyed by the random break-in, Madame squints, wanting to know who the punk is that dares step onto her turf acting so cocky. Playing it cool, the biker asks who's in charge of screening, almost slipping up and saying he came for a brawl before apologizing for being late. Super casually, the student runs a hand through his blonde hair to fix his style. Using a fake name, he introduces himself as Lee Bongjiao, claiming he was sent by the syndicate's recruiters. The kid mentions he heard they were desperate for pretty girls, while a figure in a traditional dress walks right behind him. The plus one is wearing a huge hat that totally hides her face, and the guy comments it was an absolute nightmare getting her there safe. Dripping confidence, the teen promises the old boss she's gonna love the girl the second she lays eyes on her. Tipping her hat with style, the rich client reveals she's fully decked out in a stunning traditional outfit and heavy makeup. A quick flashback explains the plot, showing the duo walking through a dark Xiancheng alley earlier. In the memory, the student got cornered by a creepy recruiter, telling him to back off and threatening to call the cops to scare him. The thug just laughed at the threat, promising the gig wasn't that bad and that a gorgeous girl like her would make absolute bank working in the area. Totally mocking the idea of cops, the guy arrogantly explained that they make the rules in this whole neighborhood. As a direct response to the threat, the biker appeared out of nowhere and landed a crushing punch right on the recruiter's face. Checking out the knocked-out enemy in the alley, the MC realized the guy's flashy orange jacket would fit him perfectly. While the teenager was stripping the downed attacker, the boss complained she'd rather just wear her own clothes, asking if all this theater was really necessary. Back in the present, the undercover delivery boy just mutters, confirming that acting is the only way they're getting inside the syndicate. Already sneaking into the courtyard, the protagonist whispers that this costume was the only way the girl wouldn't attract the wrong kind of heat from the guards. The reason for this huge gamble was simple. They had zero solid clues about the mystery queen running the area, other than her fake alias. Because of that, the student called it, saying the only viable move was kicking down the enemy's front door and digging up the answers themselves. In the present, the old madame and her giant henchmen are left completely speechless by the newcomer's presence. Rocking flawless posture, the rich client shows off her natural elegance, blending perfectly with her stunning disguise. Blown away by what she's seeing, the syndicate boss lets out a murmur of pure surprise and approval. The woman zeroes in on the young girl's sharp, crystal-clear gaze, noticing the raw strength she carries. Right after, the old lady checks out the bandaged student's flawless skin and silky hair. Not a single detail slips by, and Madame approves of the rookie's delicate hands and perfect composure. Circling the girl, the brothel boss is amazed to see the young girl hasn't dropped her head for even a second in front of her. Flashing a greedy smile, the veteran celebrates that it's been years since she last saw perfect material to become the absolute #1 star of the spot. Lifting the client's chin with one finger, the woman figures her fragile build wouldn't survive their hardcore physical beatdown training methods. Still standing super close, the old boss stays hypnotized by the determination burning in the teen's eyes. Madame decides this insanely rebellious vibe is a massive issue, meaning the girl can't be shown off to the VIP clients just yet. Stroking the student's face, the villain tells her not to stress, bragging with sick pride that she's gonna break that rebellious streak personally. With an insane glint in her eye, Madame takes full ownership of the rookie. She screams to the heavens that she's gonna turn this girl into the biggest star this district has ever seen. Without wasting a second, the veteran orders one of her giant goons to drag the rich client straight to the training room, and the guy agrees on the spot. The second the brute tries to grab the student's arm, the delivery boy acts on instinct and locks onto the attacker's wrist with a grip of iron. Staring the goon down up close, the MC warns him super calmly that things aren't gonna play out like that. Then he makes it clear that he's the one who brought the girl here, demanding nobody lay a finger on her without his explicit say-so. Totally blindsided by the kid's guts, the suit scowls, feeling the tension spike. Trying to yank his arm back, the brute feels the insane power in the teenager's grip, shook by how solid the kid is. Blinded by rage, the henchman mutters a threat and winds up a devastating attack to teach the intruder a lesson. Screaming in pure rage, the big guy slams his fist down with everything he's got, but only ends up smashing the broken floor as the biker smoothly dodges the heavy hit. Watching the mess from a distance, the old syndicate boss freezes with her pipe in hand, completely shocked by what just went down in her courtyard. The impact kicks up a dust cloud over the area, while a mystery voice points out how crazy it is for a mere escort to challenge one of the main guards like that. Cleaning his ear like he couldn't care less, the delivery guy admits he has absolutely no clue how the rules work in this place. Flashing a golden flower badge, the henchman explains that around here might makes right, and only the one who wins the brawls gets the right to run the show. The giant reveals that this tiny object is a symbol of major power, mentioning that plenty of idiots have already lost everything trying to steal his mark. Hyped for the dangerous setup, the student steps up, taking the challenge to decide who gets to call the shots. Imposing and coated in a threatening aura, the brute warns the teen he's gonna need serious strength to take him down. The MC just sizes the opponent up with a look of pure boredom, not showing an ounce of fear at the rival's massive size. Done with the talking, the kid dashes at a terrifying speed and lands a clean strike right on the giant suit's face. Following through on the hit, he slides his hand back into his jacket pocket like it's another Tuesday. The hit is so insane that the guard flies backward and violently crashes right through one of the heavy wooden doors on the property. Buried in the rubble, the giant gets knocked out cold while the biker circles back to their earlier chat. Inspecting the flower badge he snatched during the knockout, the teen sarcastically asks if that was really all there was to the power test. Standing over his knocked-out rival, the kid tosses the item in the air looking bored out of his mind, wondering if he's actually forced to walk around wearing that tacky accessory now. Across the courtyard, Madame watches her top guard go down completely frozen, shaking with rage. Locking onto them with a glare full of hate, the old boss points and mutters that the intruder duo just crossed a dangerous line. She accuses both of them of being outsiders who don't know the laws of the block, while the kid and the boss just wait patiently. Seeing that the cover is blown, the delivery boy turns his head and asks the client if the plan now includes teaching the old lady a lesson too. Keeping up the arrogance, the woman preps her pipe and warns with a twisted tone that she doesn't give a rip why they're there. The veteran makes sure to remind them that this turf is the heartbeat of the underground world, fueled only by non-stop violence and the hustle for cash. Out of nowhere, she starts untying her own clothes and declares that, by stealing the mark of power, the kid triggered rules that can't be ignored. Revealing her chest covered only by bandages, the brothel boss states that the only thing that matters now is the direct fallout from what he just pulled. The MC's eyes go wide and he freezes in pure disgust, totally lost as to why she decided to strip randomly. Freaking out as she steps closer, the student backs up terrified and curses the old lady, asking why the heck she's doing this. Kneeling on the ground with maximum drama, the veteran reveals that, according to local tradition, the woman who loses her protector has to submit to the winner of the duel. Cringing out of his mind, the biker throws his hands up begging for mercy, pleading for her to go away because he wants zero part in this. Cutting the tragic scene short, the rich boss steps up and snaps the defeated old lady back to reality. Laser-focused on the mission goal, the student cuts the chase and demands to know exactly where the mystery queen running the zone is hiding. Pressuring the down woman, the bandaged girl floats the theory that maybe Madame herself is the big fish they're hunting. Hearing that forbidden name, the old boss's face drops instantly, dropping all the theater she was putting on. Giving off a creepy vibe, the veteran confesses she finally gets the real point behind this crazy raid. Even backed into a corner, the woman refuses to snitch, spitting with disgust that the invaders will never pry that info out of her. Explaining things with a sarcastic tone, she promises she isn't the big boss and hasn't got a single clue where the real top dog is hiding right now. Listening closely, the heiress finds out the dangerous target is still laying low somewhere in that shady district. The teen's gaze sharpens even more when she learns that only the top-tier elites have clearance to actually see the leader's face. The old lady hypes these elite women up as almost godlike figures, handpicked for having flawless skills and killer charm. Sitting above all of them is the ultimate power of the queen, an untouchable figure that everyone in the underground is insanely jealous of. Being the constant target of crazy resentment and hype, the big boss runs the shadow business through raw fear and respect. Madame drops one last fatal warning that the bodyguards for these elite women are absolute monsters, swearing that crossing into their space is a one-way ticket to a dirt nap. Ignoring the threat, the duo turns their backs on the knocked-out old lady and strolls casually toward the exit. On the way out, the rich boss shoots a cold look and asks if the biker finally gets what the real next step of the plan is. Cracking his knuckles, the kid vibrates with hype and guesses they just need to smash everything in sight until they grab the top tier's attention. Happy with her employee's practical logic, the girl approves the answer and suggests they wrap up the chaos quick so they can grab dinner since she's starving. The night rolls on, showing off a massive complex of luxury nightclubs scattered through the traditional little streets of the bad neighborhood. The spot turns into total mayhem the second a suit's body crashes violently through the paper doors of the room. With the zone locked down, a hand tosses another golden flower badge, checking off the defeat of yet another head of security. The phone camera zeroes in on the dropped symbol and snaps a quick pic, keeping the receipts that another enemy base got totally wrecked. Holding a literal deck of stolen badges, the delivery boy grumbles, totally exhausted, that he's already sent dozens of goons packing tonight. Supremely annoyed by the sheer number of bad guys, the teen complains he should have charged a massive premium fee on the contract instead of the standard rate. Glancing over his shoulder, he catches the client messing with her phone and asks how long they have to keep hunting the elites in this place. On the floor of the trashed room, a low-level worker cries while tied up, screaming at the intruder's absolute nerve for wrecking her spot. Keeping up her unbreakable vibe, the rich boss stares down the defeated woman and swears she knows exactly what kind of turf she's stepping on. Flashing data on her screen, the teen reveals she tracked down the 10 spots with the heaviest criminal money laundering flow in the whole district. She wraps up her logic claiming that setups making this much bank have a massive chance of being directly tied to the top boss they're hunting. Catching the prisoner sweating, the teen demands she confirm the theory fast, threatening to move on to the next target and leave this path of destruction behind. Shaking with terror, the hostage cries desperately, calling the duo a couple of brainless psychos and begging them to quit it. In a fit of blind rage, the tied-up woman screams at the top of her lungs that the outsiders won't stand a chance against the real queen's overwhelming power. Before the mess can escalate, the prisoner's dropped phone starts ringing like crazy on the floor, grabbing everyone's attention. Moving fast, the heiress steps up to the device and checks the glowing screen, super curious about the interruption in the middle of the interrogation. The phone screen flashes a red alert, showing that the emergency SOS is coming straight from one of the highly sought-after elite hostesses. Realizing how bad this is, the girl on the floor hits peak panic and screams, trying to warn her ally that the call got hijacked. To shut down the leak, the quick student shoves the gag right back into the hostage's mouth, shutting her up instantly. Picking up the mystery call, the client listens close as a strange voice drops an official summons from the other end of the line. The direct order is crystal clear. The powerhouse demands her subordinate bring the problems to the club's most exclusive VIP room immediately. The second the meetup spot is locked in, the rich teen hangs up, tasting the. Turning back to the terrified hostage, the boss shoots a deadly glare, already prepping her next mental squeeze to squeeze out the exact location of the enemy hideout. With the prisoner sweating bullets and gagged tight, the boss checks her phone to see if they want her there ASAP. The scene flips to the inside of a massive, glowing traditional complex. Down in the basement, a huge, imposing set of double doors marks the entrance to the ultra-exclusive VIP lounge. Inside, top-shelf liquor gets poured into a glass, while someone hypes up how amazing the booze smells. Flirting with the girl pouring the drinks, the VIP smoothly asks if it only smells this good because she's the one serving it. Holding his expensive glass, the guy gets deep, saying it makes zero sense to talk about separation of powers in today's world. The Xiancheng district congressman arrogantly claims that politicians policing each other just slows down the whole country's progress. Right next to him, the deputy minister happily agrees, swearing it's way better when all branches of power are steering the ship together. Hyped up, the chief prosecutor jumps into the chat with a greedy grin, cheering for the idea of an ultimate team-up between the three government branches. In the middle of a room packed with VIPs and hostesses, the crew celebrates their shady alliance by raising a massive toast to the team-up. Cutting into the drinking session, the elite hostess named Huang Jai holds up her phone and asks the big shots to strike a cool pose. Right on cue, 3 smartphones go up in the air to snap the moment. Running the photo shoot, the hostess tells everyone to say cheese for the camera. Right in the middle of the hall, the 3 powerful guys strike a pose in just their underwear, while the politician warns that if one of them goes down, they all sink together. Loving the guaranteed mutual blackmail, the woman claps her hands and gets the attention of the other girls in the room. The elite hostess orders her crew to make sure the big shots have an epic night. While she tries to slip away low-key, one of the VIPs calls her name through the noise. The deputy minister complains that his side of the room is looking way too empty, demanding to know when the girl he asked for is finally gonna show up. Sweating a little under the pressure, the head girl asks for just a tiny bit more patience so she can sort it out. Right at that second, the heavy door swings open, and a mystery voice apologizes for the long wait. The rich boss walks in rocking her beautiful traditional disguise, announcing that the requested girl ran into an issue and couldn't make it. Flexing unbreakable confidence, the teenager shows her face and announces she's here to sub in for the night. Far away from there in a luxury complex with a pool, the tense vibe swaps out for total chill under the sun. Scrolling her phone, a hostess cracks up finding out that the old madame and her giant got clapped by a rookie. Floating chill in the water, the elite hostess named Yahello talks trash, saying the old lady was already working way past her expiration date. The other girl totally agrees, laughing hard, calling it pathetic that someone her age couldn't even lock down a decent bodyguard. Relaxing on her floaty, the elite woman celebrates the huge relief of never having to look at the veteran's face again. Suddenly, Qingguo rolls up flanked by her massive bodyguard, disagreeing and swearing that Madame's protector was insanely strong. Checking the messages on her device, the woman in the blue dress warns that 3 of their major spots have already been trashed. The screen flashes the pic of the MC and the rich boss, proving that the priority list duo is the one actually causing all the wreck. Snapping her phone shut, the woman reports that the invaders are 100% already in the district, pitching a quick team-up to Yahello. Super triggered by the intrusion, the pool hostess curses her coworker out, demanding to know who gave her the green light to barge in here barking orders. Keeping her cool, Chinggual admits the two of them were never exactly besties, but warns that right now they can't afford to let pride get in the way. Not giving a single rip about the warning, the pool woman lets out an obnoxious scream calling for her partner, shattering the peace of the whole spot. Furious, she orders the guy to stop hiding in the water and get out of there already. At the bottom of the deep pool, a super-jacked dude is chilling cross-legged with his arms folded in absolute zen mode. Answering his boss's call, the giant bodyguard opens his glowing eyes underwater. Flexing his massive legs, he gets ready to push off hard from the pool tiles. With terrifying explosive power, the warrior shoots toward the surface like an absolute torpedo. The guy explodes out of the water right next to the hostess, scaring the woman who complains he's doing way too much. Wiping his wet face, the guard grumbles that if he'd held out just a little longer, he would have broken his record of 20 minutes without breathing. Hopping out of the pool raging mad, Yahello yells asking if holding his breath is his main priority, ordering the big guy to grab her wallet ASAP. Confused by the commotion, the soaking wet guy looks over his shoulder, realizing they aren't alone. The visiting duo waits patiently by the pool edge while the dude reads the room. Climbing the steps chill as ever, the muscle guy recognizes Chinggual and her bodyguard, grabbing a towel to dry off. Throwing the red towel over his shoulder, the warrior switches to a much more serious towel drying his long hair. He states he's only going to play nice since they're all in the same line of work. Exuding straight intimidation, the giant points to the exit and formally asks the duo to beat it. Annoyed by the rejection, the woman in the blue dress asks if they aren't severely underestimating the threat, insisting she just wants to handle this clean. In the blink of an eye, the wet guard dashes at an absurd speed, closing the gap between them in a flash. Sticking his hand out like a threat, the muscle dude repeats the order for the invaders to leave the premises right now. Facing the direct threat, Chinggual's partner's eyes go wide, shifting into maximum alert mode. Losing her patience, the woman calls her rival by name, warning she isn't gonna tolerate any more disrespect. Sitting on the edge of the water, the pool hostess throws the shade right back, asking who her coworker thinks she's talking to. With a sadistic smirk, Yahello complains that the other girl ghosted them for months, and now has the nerve to show up demanding help like nothing happened. Radiating pure ice, Chinggual just tells her coworker to get lost if she doesn't want things to get really nasty. Trying to dodge a total bloodbath, the suit guard begs to talk it out first, trying to catch the other protector's ear. Slipping her sunglasses on with max disrespect, the pool woman orders her giant to finish the duo off if they say one more word. Catching the lethal order, the towel-wearing warrior drops into his fighting stance, ready for any enemy move. Seeing that talking is off the table, the bodyguard in glasses adjusts his frames, totally locked in for battle. The duo backs up for a sec, reading the hostile room fueled by the top tier's toxic rivalry. The sound of a heavy door slamming hints at a scene change. Failing to get the backup they wanted, Chinggual and her guard walk out of the estate together, saving the brawl for later. The fancy white car speeds off around Xianqing, getting the duo out of that zone. In the backseat, the suit suggests totally scrapping the idea of asking the other girls in the crew for backup. Staring out the window, the hostess admits she's got an awful gut feeling about all this, comparing the vibe to something from her past. The driver freaks out and asks if she's talking about the incident from 2 years ago, which she confirms, noting that the mercs are already starting to swarm. Locking her eyes on the skyline, the woman in the blue dress mutters she can already smell the blood brewing in the air. The sleek white ride cruises down the avenue fast, putting distance between them and the incoming disaster. Heading the opposite way, the teenager in the orange jumpsuit casually pedals his rented bike straight toward the enemy base. Jamming to music in his earbuds, the MC takes his sweet time on the ride. The biker parks right in front of the massive gate, totally ignoring the suffocating tension already hanging over the spot. Back in the basement VIP lounge, the corrupt politicians are still partying hard, but the disguised rich boss steps up to the mess. Standing her ground like a boss in the middle of the chaos, the young heiress announces she's the sub for the night. Totally blindsided by the random girl, the room's hostess freezes and questions this whole substitute story while the VIPs watch. The hostage left behind thrashes around tied up and gagged on the dark floor of the wrecked room. Meanwhile, in the main lounge, the deputy minister violently grabs the rich boss by the shoulder, totally catching the girl off guard. Pointing his finger in the middle of the party, the suit with glasses demands they use the newcomer to hype up the vibe. Super excited, he asks what the rookie's name is and what kind of games she likes to play on the job. But looking a little closer, the politician scowls and mutters, completely confused by her face. Grabbing the student's chin without asking, the man is blown away and comments on the beauty he just found. With a creepy smile, he points out that the disguised girl is a carbon copy of the late President Seong Jeoncheol's daughter. One of his buddies chimes in saying he's probably just remembering the kid's face from seeing her at her dad's funeral 2 years ago. Reaching out like a total creep, the congressman wonders out loud if the poor heiress is still alive, admitting he's always wanted to see her again and that the sub is perfect to scratch that itch. Sitting like he owns the place, the veteran tells the young girl to call him daddy, demanding she come closer and show off her charm. The teen stays rock solid and flashes a tiny smile at the VIP's gross request. Turning her back on the guy, she walks over to the drink table, totally ignoring his attempts to keep talking. Pouring a glass super chill, the rich boss announces she's gonna drop a beautiful poem to please the powerful VIP. Clapping like crazy, the suit loves the idea instantly and asks to hear the bars. Holding the drink elegantly, the young girl recites lines about sinking red flowers and scents that lure lost guests off the path. Wrapping up the poem, the student claims she's serving this drink to wash away all the VIP's worries. The politician waits hyped, while the girl wishes their party night would last forever without the sun ever coming up. Instead of handing over the glass, the heiress aggressively chucks all the booze right into the corrupt guy's face. The congressman is completely paralyzed by the shock, while the other VIPs in the room have zero clue what just happened. Not even giving the guy a second to breathe, the rich client lands a devastating slap right on the veteran's face, echoing through the whole room. His partners in crime jump in terror in the back, terrified by the employee's sudden violence. Fixing her own hand that's stinging from the hit, the teenager coldly asks if the suit understood what the poem really meant. Staring the politician down, she explains with total disrespect that the bars meant he's getting beat tonight until he can't take it anymore. Furious at the rookie's nerve for ruining the party, the hostess running the lounge whips out a sharp blade. The woman lunges fast, swearing to punish the disrespectful brat right there to defend the VIP's honor. With a quick, lethal swipe, the worker tries to slash the intruder's face using the tiny hidden knife. Safely away from the danger, the knocked-out politician starts cracking up on the floor, thinking the threat of getting beat is hilarious. Totally ignoring the chaos, he pushes up his glasses and lets out a twisted chuckle. Radiating a totally warped vibe, the congressman admits he's actually hyped to see what the girl can do. Right at that second, the armed hostess's eyes go wide, realizing her cheap shot got blocked before it even hit. Gripping the attacker's wrist like a vice, the rich boss stops the strike and comments on how important it is to know what the clients actually like. Flexing massive superiority, the student mocks that reading the room should be day one training for any elite hostess in this block. The girl's mind flashes back to her beloved dad's funeral exactly 2 years ago. In the memory, the exact same corrupt politicians partying in the room right now were looking at the grieving kid with pure pity and disgust. Fueled by serious determination, the young girl remembers that the farewell ceremony dragged on for 3 long, agonizing days. For that whole time, the heiress didn't just cry. She dug deep into the dirty history of every single guest who stepped foot in there. Burning all their names into her brain, she memorized the faces of the people faking sadness over her family's tragedy. The flashback blends with the mess of clothes tossed all over the VIP lounge in the present. Moving fast, the teenager yanks a leather belt from one of the pants dumped on the party floor. Snapping the leather tight, the rich client swears she used her morning time to dig up dirt on all her enemies' weird secrets. Glaring at the men in their underwear, she throws it in their faces that she already knew every single one of them was a creep with sick, twisted tastes. Prepping the belt like a literal weapon of punishment, the young heiress challenges the suits, asking who wants to take the first beating of the night. Outside the massive double doors, the vibe in the basement still seems pretty chill. Far from all that fancy tension, the undercover biker is waiting outside, housing skewers at a street food cart. The teenager uses the break to refuel at the tiny food stand, set up right outside the high-end brothel. Chewing his food, the student is absolutely mind-blown by how trash the service is here. Pointing at the menu, he complains about the insane prices they're charging for snacks, warning he's gonna pay with a discount. The stall owner violently slams her ladle on the table, furiously asking who the outsider thinks he's calling ma'am. Hiding her face under a hat, the woman claims this spot is strictly for high-class VIPs who blow cash like it's water. The MC curses under his breath and looks away, doing the math that if he goes looking for cheaper food, he'll end up straying too far from his rich boss. Tapping the ladle slowly, the vendor changes her tune a bit, facing the annoyed kid. She points the tool straight at the huge flower badge hanging on the boy's chest, suggesting he use that as payment. Dripping with malice, the woman praises the kid's energy, explaining that on the streets of this bad neighborhood, there are plenty of alternative ways to settle a tab. Totally losing his patience, the teenager yanks the flower necklace and yells, asking why on earth she wants that tacky thing of all things. Not wanting to waste time playing games, the biker slaps a 20,000 bill onto the food stand counter. Keeping up his rude attitude, the student demands she hand over the usual grub without any more annoying questions. Before the mess gets worse, the vendor totally flips her tone and super politely greets a regular who just walked up. Curious about the interruption, the delivery boy turns his head to see who's getting the VIP treatment from this woman. The kid squints and checks the newcomer out hard through the smoke of the grill. The mystery man rolls up rocking dark traditional gear and flexing a ridiculous amount of flower badges around his neck. Zeroes in on the sheathed sword on the stranger's hip. The biker instantly realizes this guy is giving off lethal vibes. Tapping his fingers on the table doing the math, the teenager throws together a quick plan to approach the mystery man. Paying his tab, the swordsman named Song Yopsu tosses some extra bills and kindly asks the vendor to cover the rookie's food. Jumping on the chance, the MC cracks a smile and cheerfully agrees that people who buy food for others are definitely good people. Holding up 3 fingers, the delivery boy uses fake charm to announce he needs to ask the veteran a few basic questions. Demolishing the freshly paid skewer, the guy excuses his boldness by claiming he earned the right to speak since the dude bought his meal. Hiding his eyes under his large dark hat, the swordsman kicks off the interrogation asking for the name of the person the rookie is guarding. Almost letting his boss's real name slip, the biker catches himself fast and lies, saying he works for a hostess named Hasian. Chewing his meat-looking board, the kid complains that serving is a strong word, claiming he's the one calling the shots for her around here. The stranger checks out the badge on the teen's chest and figures he must have beaten down a ton of major guards to score that trophy. With the vibe at the stand seeming chill, the swordsman casually brings up the rumors that someone has been ruthlessly beating up the neighborhood's top tier. Shifting to a much more serious, accusing tone, the hat guy demands to know if the new kid is directly tied to this massive mess. Gulping his food dry and sweating bullets, the MC plays it cool and replies he probably has nothing to do with it. Cutting off the cheap excuse, the veteran raises his hand and points menacingly right at the outsider's chest. Radiating pure battle lust, the mystery man asks if the kid seriously plans to play bodyguard until the bitter end. Staring down the veteran up close, the protagonist just agrees with the statement and keeps his stance rock solid. With zero warning, the swordsman launches a lightning-fast strike across the counter, forcing the biker to dodge back quick. Super agile, the kid finishes his bite and pulls the wooden skewer stick out like it's totally normal in the middle of a brawl. Using his momentum, he blocks a heavy swing from the enemy with his own arm. Pressing the attack, the veteran coldly states that the rookie managed to lie on all 3 questions he asked. Holding the wooden stick up like a shield, the student declares that from now on he's treating the guy as an official enemy. At that point, the stall owner totally loses it and screams for them both to stop trashing her business. Slapping a stack of cash on the table, the vendor flips her attitude and suggests they order more food if they get hungry during the fight. The delivery boy checks out the cash on the counter and thinks for a second. Making up his mind, he tosses the stick and says he's gonna give the hat guy exactly what he's asking for. Slipping into a super confident stance, the guy announces he completely outclasses the other merc in speed, strength, and accuracy. Keeping his guard up, he warns that trying to fight barehanded against the swordsman is just begging to lose a wrist. The veteran admits it with a serious tone, respecting the embarrassing disadvantage. To level the playing field, the teenager quickly grabs a pair of metal chopsticks off the table. Staring down his rival, the biker remembers some old advice that pride shouldn't ever get in the way of professional work. Gripping the improvised cutlery like mini daggers, the student declares he's gonna act like a true pro. Confused by the weapon choice, the veteran asks if using those is the kid's definition of being a professional. He argues that those tiny chunks of metal will never be enough to handle his blade, stating that charging the exact price for a job is the right way to go. Calling the rookie's stance pure arrogance, the swordsman promises this boldness is gonna cost him big time. Instantly, the hat guy lunges, slicing the air with insane speed. With a fatal move, he charges full force at the delivery boy. The teenager moves on pure reflex and uses the metal utensils to block the brutal charge. Blindsided by the force of the impact, the kid's eyes go wide as he feels the heavy pressure of the fight. Not giving an inch, the veteran turns up the heat on his offense with a focused, deadly stare. An overwhelming flurry of attacks takes over the spot, forcing the kid to defend non-stop. Crazy agile, the biker dodges the precise strikes, desperately hunting for a gap in the enemy's guard. Pushing the pace, the swordsman warns it's way too late for the kid to try and back out now. Landing a devastating hit, the man tells him there's no room left for regrets. Barely slipping away, the student recovers his footing fast and asks what kind of garbage the guy is even talking about. Ignoring the sass, the veteran readies another dangerous strike, counting that this is the rookie's 3rd mistake. The swordsman doubts the kid can keep this rhythm up for long, figuring he doesn't have the real power to back up all that cockiness. Right in the middle of the charge, the teenager stomps down hard on the enemy's scabbard. The veteran is totally shocked by the crazy maneuver, having no clue when the kid managed to pull off the block. With a sharp, calculating glare, the biker zeroes in on the weak spot he just forced open. Capitalizing on the opening, the delivery boy lands a crushing hit that makes the opponent groan in pain. Super confident, the student points out that the guy's distance control is completely trash. The hit lands on the side of the hat guy's body, leaving his guard wide open. Taking the damage, the veteran curses in frustration, while the kid reminds him that the free food just gave him even more fuel. Winding up a devastating punch, the guy sarcastically asks the vendor to take the financial hit for the dude. Right at that critical second, the sound of hurried footsteps echoes out, killing the fight. A gloved hand pops out, pointing straight at the dueling. The delivery boy turns his head, surprised to see who's crashing their brawl. One of the VIP lounge hostesses appears in the doorway panting, looking totally furious about the noise outside. Before she can even get a word out, a bossy voice demands to know who gave her the green light to make so much noise. The employee ends up dropping to her knees in sheer panic, apologizing, while the rich boss makes a grand entrance, stepping right on the body of one of the knocked-out politicians. The bandaged teen tells the woman to shut her mouth immediately, keeping a cold, superior stare. Looking down at the kneeling employee, the client reads the room with absolute zero. The woman on the floor recognizes the rival's imposing vibe and mentions her reputation as an elite hostess. Flipping her face to pure hatred, the employee insults the student super aggressively. Ignoring the trash talk, the heiress points out that the woman already brainwashed those powerful VIPs to guarantee her own safety. Offended by the callout, the hostess asks how the rookie has the guts to talk to her like that. Moving slow and steady, the rich boss steps off the knocked-out politicians. Walking slowly through the wrecked lounge, she warns she's about to ask some majorly important questions. The young girl warns the woman she better answer clearly, threatening serious payback if she tries anything funny. To guarantee she listens, the student steps directly on one of the hostage suit's collars, swearing she'll make her partners suffer. The client promises that starting a mess in a place that cashes in on family tragedies will be the final nail in the coffin for this whole business. Keeping up the mental pressure, she demands the employee fully grasp how bad things really are. Cutting to the chase, the bandaged teen demands to know the exact whereabouts of the mystery leader Yoonj. The woman on the floor lets out a fake laugh, asking if the kid is seriously trying to threaten her. As a direct response, the boss simply squeezes the control device hard. The politicians on the floor start thrashing violently, groaning in pain from the shock collar. Totally panicking, the corrupt guys beg for air, unable to handle the brutal punishment. Seeing her clients getting tortured, the hostess caves to the panic and screams, calling the girl a psycho and agreeing to spill. The woman gets up fuming and warns that if the rookie finishes off one of those suits, she won't be making it out of the brothel alive either. The rich client just stares at her without a drop of fear, claiming she's perfectly fine with those odds. Showing off a dark determination, the heiress admits she'd actually be thrilled to take out those gross guys herself. The teen fires the question back ice cold, demanding to know if the employee is gonna talk or not. Exactly at that tense moment, a mystery figure breaches the room at an insane speed. Through the smoke, a guy in traditional gear drops to one knee fast in front of the women. The swordsman from the brawl outside reveals himself panting, begging for forgiveness for failing to stop the enemy push. The brothel worker's eyes go wide in confusion, asking why he's panicking and what attack he's even talking about. The rich boss herself turns her head and locks onto the sudden arrival of the kneeling veteran. Through the rising dust, the firm fist of an orange jacket slowly appears, as the girl recognizes the biker. The delivery boy's face is now totally hidden behind a heavy, dark motorcycle helmet. Rocking his classic work jumpsuit with the delivery logo, he gets ready to take control of the scene. Standing in the smoke at the room's entrance, a new guy steps up, taking over the situation wearing the classic orange jumpsuit. Keeping up a menacing vibe through the dark visor, the dude simply announces a delivery. The rich boss turns her head, startled by the random stranger popping up during such a tense moment. The young girl locks her eyes on the biker's silhouette, sizing up the heavy energy he's putting out. Casual as ever, the invader holds up a basic plastic bag, proving he brought a package. Instantly, the heiress's eyes blow wide open as she gets hit by a massively painful flashback from her past. The image of the guy in the fog matches perfectly with the man she saw the day her dad was taken down for good, making her realize he is definitely not her employee. Sweating cold, the student tries to process the shock of that terrifying reveal when her phone starts buzzing nonstop. The screen shows the emergency SOS call is coming from prosecutor Yang Jiwoo. On the other end of the line, the suit lets out a massive sigh of relief that the girl finally picked up. Driving like a maniac, the prosecutor tells her to pay close attention, warning that a merc hunting priority targets just hit the district. The guy's look in the rearview mirror reflects pure stress as he curses that an absolute monster slipped past their defenses, taking down 3 of their best guards. Listening quietly, the rich client keeps her cool, while the veteran says he's already on his way and demands to know where the MC is. The prosecutor yells desperately for the girl to stay glued to her bodyguard no matter what, warning that she's the ultimate target tonight. Meanwhile, the helmet merc uses his own phone camera to lock onto the girl like a marked target in the underground system. Phone in hand, the fake delivery boy confirms over the radio that the girl is the chosen target out of the 2 in the room. The prosecutor keeps yelling through the phone, desperately asking if the heiress is still listening on the other side. Totally frozen by the danger, the young girl grips her phone tight, feeling the lethal threat just a few steps away. Flashing a glare full of rage, the boss demands to know what the merc did with the real Lee Sang. The helmet guy lowers his phone, acting confused, and sarcastically asks if his coworker actually managed to take out the dude guarding the outside. The girl's mind jumps to the worst-case scenario involving dark puddles on the street. At that point, the merc points out he's already done some heavy damage on the way in, putting the local guards in a super rough spot. Blindsided by the invader's cruelty, the bandaged teen mutters, not fully grasping how massive the attack was. Cold as ice, the guy in the orange suit walks up and points his finger right at the girl's forehead, mimicking a gun barrel. Then he drops his thumb in a threatening move, like he's pulling an invisible trigger right in the heiress's face. The young girl backs up on instinct, processing the lethal warning she just got handed in such a twisted, cynical way. Out of nowhere, a brutal flying kick flies in, slamming the side of the fake delivery guy's helmet with a massive crack. A new brothel hostess lands on the floor after the hit, warning that if anyone's gonna finish this guy off, it's gonna be her, since he ruined the VIP's party. Dazed by the kick, the enemy shakes it off and notices the suited politicians in their underwear, recognizing the VIPs. In the back of the room, one of the corrupt veterans screams furiously at the break-in, asking if the punk knows whose toes he's stepping on. The arrogant big shot keeps yelling in the back, while the fighter who just dropped in preps for a real brawl. Dropping into a defensive stance, the elite employee figures out that the dirty old men are way too important to be taken out like this, finding the whole mess super annoying. Running through the rules of the job, the helmet merc realizes out loud that, since the girl jumped into the fight, he now has a total green light to finish her off. The hostess's eyes show massive panic facing the invader's cold, killer confidence. In a flash, the enemy preps his attack with a ridiculously fast and offensive stance. Taken over by rage, the worker lunges screaming that the guy is gonna pay big time for daring to threaten the club's VIPs. The fake delivery guy just slides to the side, dodging the furious charge with insane ease. Taking advantage of the perfect opening, the merc lands a crushing blow right to the woman's stomach, while the hat swordsman bursts into the lounge screaming her name in a panic. Totally out of breath after sprinting there, the veteran begs the hostess to be extremely careful with that monster. The swordsman realizes in shock that the invader can accelerate his finger movements in a split second, creating a focused impact that hits like a literal gunshot. Blowing the tip of his own finger like a smoking barrel, the merc asks everyone to listen up for an announcement. Pointing straight at the rich boss and the wounded employee, he declares that both of them have bounties on their heads in his task list. The invader explains that the priority request demands capturing a pair of teens, plus eliminating the top boss of the luxury escorts in that district. Flexing pure greed, the fake biker reveals the contractors are paying double the cash for the elite worker's head. The injured woman grinds her teeth full of hate, processing the fact that her own life is worth a fortune on the black market. Seeing his VIP in direct danger, the swordsman rushes across the room screaming for her. Kneeling and holding her wound, the woman listens to the enemy celebrate scoring 2 insanely valuable bounties in the exact same spot. The hostess's eyes go wide in terror, while the fake biker celebrates hitting the jackpot with this lucky coincidence. Suddenly, a blonde teenager in a suit pops up in the room holding his stomach and grumbling in total annoyance. The helmet-wearing invader turns his head in surprise, cursing the newcomer for ruining his moment of glory. With a massive impact, the MC, Lee Sang, lands an epic dropkick squarely on the enemy's back, sending him flying across the hall. With his fists still extended from the follow-through, the blonde kid sarcastically asks if the merc liked a taste of his own medicine, wondering if sneak attacks sting as much as they look. The fake delivery guy goes flying out of control and smashes violently into the basement wall, shattering the stone around him. Amid the rubble, the invader leans on his knee and mutters to himself, trying to wrap his head around the insane power behind the hit he just took. Across the room, the student straightens out his fancy clothes, grumbling about how incredibly annoying this whole disguise is. Taking off his jacket for some breathing room, the dude complains that it's physically impossible to throw hands properly in such tight, formal gear. Flashing a super-focused, deadly glare, the MC takes a quick beat before picking up his train of thought. The merc zeroes in on the massive golden flower necklace hanging from the blonde kid's neck, cursing under his breath as he recognizes the heavy hitter emblem. Dusting off his gear as he stands up, the fake biker asks if the teen is running with that huge syndicate known as the Union. Keeping the mystery alive, the invader questions the kid's real identity, totally baffled by how he knows and violently challenges the rules of the underground. The rich boss watches the whole chick go down looking completely lost, whispering the name of that supposedly big organization without connecting the dots. Wiping the corner of his mouth with the back of his hand, Lee Sang coldly drops the mic, saying he couldn't care less about the guy's wild guesses. The blonde kid drops into a heavy combat stance and tells the invader to just shut up and take the epic beatdown that's coming his way. On the other side of the trashed room, the helmeted merc fully recovers and plants his feet on the ground, ready for round 2. A dangerous reddish aura starts radiating from the fake biker, proving he's about to stop holding back. Keeping his eyes locked on the target, the MC cracks his neck to loosen up his muscles before the clash. In the blink of an eye, the enemy dashes at an unreadable speed and throws a direct punch right at the teen's guard. The impact is brutal, catching the student right in the face and sending a splash of red into the air from the crushing force of the blow. Pushed back by the high-speed rush, the kid slides backward across the floor, eating the pain of the sneak attack in total silence. Capitalizing on an opening, the MC kicks a chair into the air, using it as a distraction to counter the merc mid-jump. With insane agility, the teen heavily plants his boot into the floor, anchoring his weight to generate way more power. The clash between the two fighters unleashes a massive shockwave, cracking the very room around them with sheer brute force. After the heavy collision, the fake delivery guy backs up and lands in a crouch, visibly rattled by his rival's unreal durability. Leaning on her bodyguard, the VIP host watches the exchange completely starstruck, amazed to see the rookie going toe-to-toe with a monster on that level. Ignoring the danger around her, the wealthy heiress tracks every move with a deep, silent gaze, putting all her trust in her hired muscle. Kneeling on the floor after the hit, the helmeted merc tries to play it off, claiming the strike only landed because his guard was down. Wiping his bruised lip, the MC coldly warns him that he's not gonna let an attack like that slide again. The fake delivery guy looks at his own hand, feeling the weight of that absurd strength, and perfectly recognizes his rival's fighting style and way of speaking. Glaring through his dark visor, the enemy states with absolute certainty that he remembers exactly who this blonde kid is. Totally bored by the small talk, Lee Sang tells the dude to stop acting like they're besties and asks him to get straight to the point. At that, the merc mentions hearing rumors that the teen had quit the underground delivery. The student heavily narrows his eyes in annoyance, repeating his warning for the guy to stop pretending they go way back. Brushing off the threat, the helmeted guy vents about how people like them were born just to deal with the ugliest parts of life and will never get a happy ending. Staring down the suited kid, the invader asks if playing a normal human was fun, dropping the MC's old codename, Number 2. From a distance, the injured host and the rich boss watch the interaction, totally shook by the massive reveal that just dropped. Processing the intel, the young heiress whispers the codename in shock, finally connecting the dots about her bodyguard's dark past. Turning his back for a second, the biker curses under his breath, admitting that having his past dragged out in front of an audience is super cringy. Looking at his own hand, the kid admits he might have come from a rough place, but he guarantees he won't just swallow whatever garbage people try to feed him. Looking over his shoulder at his rival, the teen makes it crystal clear that they are nothing alike. Triggered by the disrespect, the merc squares up and tells the kid to drop the ego. Wasting zero time, the fake delivery guy rushes in at crazy speed to kick off the brawl again. The enemy reaches out with a gloved hand, trying to snatch the teen in a quick, dangerous grapple. Totally throwing the guy off, the MC just holds up a hand calling for a timeout, announcing he's officially done fighting. The merc freezes in his tracks as the student points out that this beef is just going to drag on without solving anything, or making them a single dime. Taking the free pass, the helmeted dude turns and sprints away, while the blonde kid yells after him, wondering where the coward is running off to. Throwing up a sarcastic salute from a distance, the invader jokes about the kid letting him go, teasing that he might just become obsessed with him. Pointing to the women in the back of the room, the enemy reminds him that the rich heiress seemed pretty dead set on handling things her own way. The bandaged client keeps a serious, focused glare as she listens to the rival hint that if he bails now, the girl is going to be in deep trouble. The merc asks if ditching them like this isn't basically leaving the victims totally exposed to whatever dangers are left in the club. Then the fake biker calmly reads the room and declares there's absolutely no need to rush things right now. Staring intensely at the MC, the invader promises that their fates are tied together thanks to the lifestyle they chose. Jumping through the massive hole in the wall, the merc signs off, warning that as long as the kid stays in this line of work, they are definitely going to cross paths again. As the dust settles, Lee Sang just stands there with his back turned in the middle of the wrecked hall, until he hears his boss call him by his old code name. The teen slowly turns his head, meeting his client's dead serious glare as she demands some instant explanations for all of this. Flexing her boss energy, the student warns that if her bodyguard doesn't spill the whole truth right now, their $1 million contract is history. Silence takes over the room as the blonde kid slightly turns his head away, weighing his boss's words. Without showing an ounce of panic, the teen mutters a short, dry reply. With totally empty, distant eyes, he simply accepts the threat and tells the client to just fire him already. The MC's mind plunges into a dark flashback, showing him in an orange jumpsuit staring down a suited guy who is desperately begging for mercy. Shaking with fear in the dark hallway, the guy cries and swears he's just a regular admin worker who doesn't know any heavy secrets. Grabbing the delivery guy's arm in pure desperation, the hostage pleads for his life, claiming he has a wife, little kids, and a sick mom in the hospital. Right then, a second figure wearing a suit and a yellow helmet steps up from behind, calling the guy by his codename, Number 2. The partner puts her hands on her hips and trashes her coworker's vibe, warning that she's not gonna let his hesitation slide this time. Pointing a bossy finger at him, the yellow delivery girl states she's tired of cleaning up his messes, demanding he finish the prisoner off himself. Shoving the kid's shoulder, she tells him he needs to accept why he's sitting in the second spot, acknowledging he's the strongest brawler in the crew. The partner coldly assesses that the guy's biggest flaw is his soft heart, stopping him from crossing the finish line when things get messy. The hostage keeps begging on the floor, while the yellow-helmeted woman claims this is exactly why her coworker will never hit the top of the rankings. Pressured by the brutal setup, Lee Sang clenches his fist hard while his partner keeps going off on him. Standing next to the frozen biker, she asks if he doesn't want to be number 1, coldly ordering him to smash the fallen guy. The MC stays completely silent, hiding his massive inner conflict and stress behind the dark helmet's visor. The terrified man keeps crying and pleading for the merc's mercy, totally at the mercy of a cruel fate. Unclenching his fist, the MC breaks his silence and tells the worker to go home and be number 1 for his family. With a sharp pull, the kid in orange yanks his arm away, breaking free from the victim's desperate grip. Without looking back, the delivery guy turns around and starts walking away, straight up abandoning the mission to take out the target. Furious about him going rogue, the yellow-helmeted partner screams down the hall, calling him an idiot for backing out again. Pointing her finger at his back, she yells that sparing people's lives doesn't make him some righteous, goody-two-shoes hero. Pissed off, the merc throws it in his face that the system will eliminate the prisoner anyway, calling the biker a cowardly bystander. The very next second, a brutal, messy attack takes the worker out of the picture, spreading a dark stain across the hallway floor. The kid in the orange jacket stops walking and looks over his shoulder, watching his partner standing next to the awful mess left from wrapping up the job. A third figure pops up in the memory wearing a blue helmet, asking in a bossy tone if number 2 backed out of finishing the target again. The woman in yellow just gives a frustrated nod, confirming the boss's suspicion. Staring down the kid, the team leader coldly states that the boy keeps trying to play make-believe as a normal human. As the teen walks alone into the dark hallway, the boss's voice echoes, calling him a defective product in their world. The awful flashback ends, and the biker's mind snaps back to the fancy present-day lounge, blinking to shake off the old trauma. Totally emotionally drained, Lee Sang lets out an empty sigh, getting back to the heavy chat he was having with his current client. The student dares his boss to fire him again, leaving the rich girl completely speechless at his rejection. The bandaged girl's eyes go wide with outrage, unable to process that her best bodyguard is actually walking away from a massive payout. Turning his head, the boy admits it was totally his fault for getting blinded by the cash, thinking it'd be an easy gig to babysit a clueless rich kid, slack off, and cash a massive check at the end. Looking super stressed, he admits he had zero clue the mission would scale up to this level of chaotic danger. The biker flat out asks if the teen even understands the caliber of monsters gunning for her right now. Highly offended by her partner wanting to quit, the client fires back, asking if he actually got spooked by that trash merc from earlier. The guy just sighs at his boss's ignorance, warning her that if she really wanted to dig into his dark past, she should have done her homework to understand the scale of this mess. Dead serious, the delivery guy drops one last friendly warning for her to drop this revenge quest right here, promising the next step will result in her permanent game over. The tension maxes out, and the Era smashes a glass on the floor, shattering it to flex her rage. Taking a deep breath and radiating boss energy, the student declares that she's the one who calls the shots on when this op stops or goes forward. With her red eyes glowing with anger, she locks eyes with her employee and repeats that she holds absolute control over every choice in this mission. Hitting him right in his weak spot, the girl reminds him he desperately needs cash and asks if he really thinks he'll ever score a chance like this again if he jumps ship now. Cornered by the money argument, the MC drops his head and lets out a long sigh of defeat. The teen agrees that he really wants the cash to buy his dream apartment, but points out he's not desperate enough to dive headfirst into this much dirt for it. Keeping it 100% real with his teammate, Lee Sang admits that if a bunch of monsters on the level of that fake delivery guy show up all at once, he won't be able to guarantee she makes it out. Pissed at her partner's lack of confidence, the rich boss yells that she paid top dollar exactly for him to handle this kind of heat, asking if this is really his limit. Jumping into the chat, the veteran prosecutor backs the kid up, advising the heiress that VIPs need to stay breathing and reminding her she already has enough money for that. Super calm, Yang Jiwoo suggests the young girl take her fortune and skip the country ASAP, stating that calling in outside help is the only way she survives this. The suited guy recommends the girl just drop her late father's business and go live a happy, peaceful life, promising that's exactly what the old man would have wanted for her. Turning her back on the bodyguard, the teen glares at the man in the trench coat and coldly asks if he seriously thinks he has the moral high ground to preach to her. Letting out a dry, sarcastic laugh, the student says she isn't stupid, revealing she already knows all about the prosecutor's sketchy past. Ripping the veteran's band-aid off, the client points out he straight up abandoned his own family to fend for themselves and is now trying to live comfortably like nothing happened. With zero chill, she throws it in his face that his family passed away entirely because of him, asking if he really thought he could bury that history so easily. In a flash, the elegant man totally loses his cool and lunges in a rage, aggressively grabbing the bandaged girl by the collar of her traditional dress. Blinded by pure rage, the prosecutor calls the heiress every name in the book, proving her trash talk hit a massive nerve. Instantly, Lee Sang steps into the mess and locks down the attacker's wrist with an iron grip, asking why he's crossing the line with his client like that. Looking bored out of his mind, the teen throws out a sarcastic apology for interrupting their little private drama. Pointing to the top-tier host on the floor, the kid says he needs to clean up the mess left in the room, telling the suit to take his tantrum somewhere else so he doesn't ruin the workflow. Turning his attention back to the injured woman, the delivery guy reminds them she was looking for the mysterious boss named Yoongjin before the whole brawl popped off. Totally straightforward, the MC tells the worker to go hunt for her answers at the spot of some lady named Hong Ae, tossing a huge new clue into the mix. Leaning on the floor, the injured woman recognizes the name instantly, clocking the person as a top-class host from this district. She mutters while doing the math, confirming this specific person is the worker who has the closest, most exclusive ties to the big boss of the syndicate. Hearing her rival's logic, the young heiress repeats the word thoughtfully, realizing they finally have a direct target in the upper ranks. Right at that moment of realization, the sharp sound of a blade slicing the air echoes dangerously through the dark hall. A lethal total blindside attack comes out of the shadows, aiming a sharp weapon straight for the distracted teen. Caught completely off guard by the cowardly move, the rich client's eyes go wide without even a second to try and block it. Running on pure protective instinct, the biker dives in front of his boss and violently shoves her out of the strike zone, while she screams his name in a panic. Taking advantage of the chaos, the veteran prosecutor moves with crazy speed and snatches the attacker's wrist before things get fatal. Using raw brute force, the suited man squeezes the enemy's arm until it pops loudly, stopping the ambush dead in its tracks. With a smooth, ruthless move, the suited guy tosses the assassin in the blue dress backward, clearing the threat away from the squad. The attacker finds her footing quickly in the middle of the room, showing off a small, hidden dagger gripped tightly between her fingers. Giving the enemy zero breathing room, the veteran clenches his fist, winding up a devastating counter to shut the fight down. Backed into a corner by Yang Jiwoo's raw power, the woman in blue shoots him a sharp, stressed look, realizing she totally underestimated their defense. Pulling a sneaky move from behind, the glasses-wearing backup cowardly grabs the guy in the trench coat, forcing him to drop his combo and grunt in pain. The room turns into absolute chaos, with the veteran throwing down against the duo of invaders while the student plays defense for the boss, all while the injured host watches closely. In the corner, the orange-haired assistant's eyes bug out in shock, seeing how violently this whole thing just escalated. The injured woman on the floor recognizes the attacker in blue, whispering the name Chenggual in total disbelief. Staying on the offensive, the newcomer just shoots a cold, calculating side-eye at her fallen rival. The scenery around the two crews shows the bodies of the corrupt old politicians scattered on the dark rug, knocked out cold after getting zapped by the collars. Faking some sympathy, the assassin crouches near her beaten coworker and asks if she's good, fishing to see if the outsiders caused all this damage. Rejecting the cheap pity, The host insists she can walk off the injury, trying to explain that this whole mess looks like one massive misunderstanding. Before the chat goes any further, a heavy, loud footstep echoes across the floor, snapping the mini-truce. Flexing his brutal strength, the veteran prosecutor lifts the woman with glasses by the neck using just one hand, as she thrashes and groans, totally choked out. Barely conscious, the hostage desperately tries to warn her partner, signaling that the guy in the trench coat is wildly dangerous. Keeping his cool in the madness, the blonde biker locks onto the suited man's arm, getting a warning from the adult to back off immediately. Stepping up, the rich heiress raises her voice and cancels any unnecessary beatdowns, demanding they try talking it out for intel before going full caveman. The guy in the trench coat drops the hostage and turns to the girl, starting to defend his explosive rage with a super heavy tone. Radiating a suffocating, toxic aura, the veteran admits his unchecked fury is strictly because of how stubborn the teen is acting. He explains that even though he is dying to teach her a harsh lesson for going rogue, he knows he could never actually lay a hand on his VIP. As the vibe gets super dense among the allies, a lighter silently sparks up a thin cigarette across the wrecked room. Snapping back to his cold persona, the prosecutor announces he has zero clue why the boss decided to poke around this dirty underground hole. But then he declares that whatever her reason, the woman in the blue dress and her crew are officially marked targets who need to be neutralized with zero mercy. Showing off his professional ruthlessness, the elegant man flat-out promises he's gonna permanently cancel out the attackers right here, right now. Panicking seeing her friend on the front lines, the orange-haired assistant rushes the fight, begging them to chill out. Sprawled on the floor and still catching her breath from being choked, the woman with glasses weakly reaches out, telling her partner not to pull any crazy stunts against the veteran. Ignoring her squad's warnings, the assassin in blue goes all in, slicing the air in a suicide charge against the outsiders. Without breaking a sweat, the biker intercepts the enemy's strike midair, locking the blade down with absolute precision. The student completely pins the dangerous woman and just shoots a chill look over his shoulder, waiting on his boss's call. The room goes ice cold as the teen duo stands their ground, proving they fully control this botched ambush. Randomly breaking the ice, the blonde kid drops a genuine apology to the heiress, admitting he was way out of line during their argument earlier. Staying totally serious, the bandaged client accepts it, but grumbles she still can't stomach his arrogant attitude when he tried to bail on the mission. She points out she put all her family drama on the table from day one, demanding to know why he keeps keeping his own shady past under wraps like that. The MC looks away, feeling the heat of the call-out and looking super awkward after getting cornered by his partner's straight lot. Annoyed by his silence, the young girl scowls and coldly tells him to get lost, officially pulling the plug on the million-dollar op. The scene cuts hard to the outside of a small, late-night street food stall, miles away from the underground club's messy violence. At the little food setup, a veteran vendor flips hot skewers while smoke billows over the liquor. A hungry customer inhales the snack looking super hyped, savoring every bite of the cheap street food. The middle-aged man in a suit chews with his mouth full, making it obvious he is absolutely loving the budget midnight run. Flashing a huge, welcoming smile, the suited guy offers some food to his date, telling her not to be shy about grabbing a bite. The veteran admits this humble setup is one of his top spots, while the high-class woman identified as the VIP host Hong Ae waits patiently right next to him. Hiding her face behind a gorgeous traditional fan, the fancy worker politely points out that this kind of casual hangout puts her in a really sketchy spot with her job. She keeps explaining that getting randomly summoned with zero heads-up completely breaks all the syndicate's security protocols. Looking down submissively, the woman gently asks the guy not to make a habit of this, since they're in a super public spot with way too many eyes around. Completely ignoring his date's stress, the politician shoves a skewer at her with boss energy, ordering her to just eat it already. Trapped by the direct order, the VIP host stares at the cheap street food with a little hesitation in her elegant eyes. Out of options, the woman in the fancy dress takes the snack and takes a tiny, delicate bite, keeping her untouchable vibe intact. Chewing on the street food, the luxury worker says she can never turn down a direct order from her high-roller client. Suddenly, the woman's cold, composed face morphs into pure shock the second the flavor actually hits her taste buds. Seeing the fancy woman's priceless reaction, the suited man bursts out laughing and mocks her, asking if she didn't think it tasted like absolute garbage. Flashing a cynical grin, the veteran reveals he picked this specific spot on purpose because the stall owner is deaf and illiterate, guaranteeing total privacy for his shady meetups. The stall's food wasn't great to begin with, but the host decides it tastes like straight trash, guessing the vendor's taste buds must be completely shot. Calmly refilling his own cup, the politician cheers that the terrible food keeps other customers away, thinking it's the most brilliant setup ever. Creeped out by the vibe, the luxury woman covers her mouth and asks him to cut to the chase. The suited guy locks eyes with the boss of the top-tier hosts and asks point-blank if she was the one who put the bounty on those recent targets. With a twisted smile, he guarantees there is zero chance she pulled this off solo, guessing there's got to be some heavy hitter backing her up from the shadows. The fancy worker keeps her poker face and plays dumb, sarcastically wondering out loud who this mystery VIP could possibly be. Turning her head, she lies right to his face, claiming she has no idea why he's bringing this up out of nowhere or what he's getting at. Pouring another drink, the veteran explains people go to that district to do whatever they want, promising he doesn't give a damn about her side hustles. But then he points a threatening finger and warns that the turf belongs to him, dropping the ultimatum that if she crosses the line, it's game over for her. Faced with the lethal warning, the woman drops her silverware on the table with a hard thud. Standing up and giving a polite bow, the host promises to take his advice seriously and says her goodbyes, announcing she's bouncing. The corrupt politician just sits alone at the lit stall, keeping a heavy glare while he goes back to his meal. The VIP worker powerwalks through the neon streets of the dangerous district, putting distance between her and that awful date. Gripping her traditional fan, she cuts through the night, flashing an intensely focused glare. The woman's face twists into pure rage as she curses the miserable old man in her head, showing exactly how much she despised the threat she just got. The host's mind flashes back 6 years to the day she was kneeling, congratulating the politician on his election win. In the flashback, young Hung Ae steps up super politely, offering him the best bottle in the house. But the suit chilling on the sofa aggressively cuts her off, completely rejecting her service. The guy points at the girl next to her and demands to be served by her instead, who quickly introduces herself as Chinggual. Sidelined in the corner, the woman recalls spending the whole night doing absolutely nothing, forced to watch the cringy scene play out. Bitter resentment takes over her face, proving she could never let go of getting publicly humiliated like that. Snapping back to the present, a familiar voice calls out to her on the street, asking why she's walking around with such a killer glare. A super flashy dude rocking a fur coat rolls up, hyping up her smile and asking who had the guts to put her in a bad mood. Flexing total confidence, the suited guy Hyo Sang-jayan offers to go take out the culprit just to make his partner happy. The elite woman turns her head and calls the guy honey in a super soft voice. Without missing a beat, she grabs the dude by the collar, asking how many times she has to repeat the same rule. Pulling him in close, the worker demands to be called by her title Majesty, the Great Queen from now on. The woman's face lights up with pure ambition, hyping that the time has finally come for all her hard grinding to pay off. Standing together on a luxury balcony, she drops the news that the big boss president is coming to see her soon, guessing it's gonna be a formal meetup to crown her the queen of the district. Reaching her ring-covered hand toward the city lights, the villain flexes unshakable confidence, swearing she isn't just stopping at this turf. Pressing her hand against the glowing skyline, the fake queen declares it won't be long until she has the whole world in her pocket. Flashing a toxic grin, she asks her highly styled partner for a special favor. The woman pulls up a phone pic of the outsider duo, complaining that these crashers are wrecking the district and actually beating her elite workers. Looking at the guy on the balcony, the host tells him to handle the mess and take the targets out while she wraps up her VIP meeting with the president. The big dude flashes a creepy smile and accepts the gig instantly, bragging that heavy lifting was always his best trick, before quickly catching himself and calling her Majesty. The scene cuts to another spot in the district, where the veteran prosecutor yells in a panic after finding the young heiress, admitting he almost died from stress. Checking the girl out closely, he praises her fancy disguise, but quickly notices she looks pretty rough and asks if she took a hit during the brawl. Keeping her eyes locked down and distant, the bandaged teen dryly answers that she's totally fine. Breathing easier, the suit grabs the boss's arms and asks what she's doing alone in this sketchy area, wanting to know where that biker kid ran off to. Super cold, the student just drops that she fired the guy, leaving the prosecutor totally stunned by the wild update. She repeats it without a drop of emotion, confirming she kicked Lee Sang to the curb for good. The elegant man's eyes pop, trying to compute that their heaviest hitter just walked off the job. Getting his cool back, the veteran cracks a relieved smile and holds the girl's hands, hyping up her boss move. Trying to comfort the heiress, he swears that kid was always a walking red flag and that they're better off without him. But the teen looks up with a sharp glare and warns that canceling the contract doesn't change the endgame, reminding him they always managed just fine solo. Squeezing her ally's hands, the client firmly asks if he already mapped out the next major play for the op. The prosecutor says their next stop is raiding the suite of the host named Hung Ae, but they get blocked by the blue dress assassin Du in the hall. Super annoyed by the stalkers, the suited guy shoots them a deadly look and asks who the hell these enemies are blocking their path. Keeping it classy, the assassin Chunggual answers honestly that they're the ops who came to hunt them. The woman in blue states that, following strict orders from the ex-boss, they had to put an end to the two outsiders. The shot focuses on a massive, purple-lit building in the middle of the Sidithe Red Heart hotel sitting up the new battlefield. Back in the hallway chat, the assassin admits that after listening to their argument, she realized this was all just one gigantic misunderstanding. She suggests dropping the beef, realizing both squads have the exact same goal, while the memory of a bloody fight flashes in her head with orders to call for backup. The fancy elevator screen shows the numbers ticking up fast, meaning the squad is pulling up to floor 22. On the top floor, an army of armed workers is throwing down in a brutal hallway clash, screaming out panicked orders to not let anyone breach the VIP zone. The elevator doors finally slide open, showing off the crazy team-up between the prosecutor, the rich boss, and the assassin duo, all ready to throw hands. Getting her sharp weapon ready, the woman in blue warns this is strictly a temporary truce until everyone gets what they came for. Looking at the massive crowd of angry enemies blocking the hall, the crew sighs heavily, admitting the math is definitely not in their favor. Pulling out his metal baton, the veteran prosecutor bitterly admits that seeing this many ops at once makes him miss that biker kid. Furious about getting ditched, the suit calls the student a coward, wondering what else that useless kid is even gonna do with his life after bailing on such a massive payday. Answering her allies' trash talk, the young heiress calmly states her ex-bodyguard is just gonna go back to delivering fried chicken. The student looks down for a second, feeling the sting of that breakup right in the middle of a deadly turf war. A red sports car tears down the empty highway at max speed, while the girl's voice echoes, thinking about the lame excuse the teen used to quit. The luxury ride speeds furiously through the night, ripping up the asphalt with only the headlights lighting the way. Behind the wheel of the fast car is none other than the fake queen's hulking partner, flexing his massive fur coat. Cruising comfortably, the flashy dude catches a weird noise and mutters in confusion, glancing out the window. The villain freaks out when he sees the delivery guy in the orange jumpsuit riding his beat-up bike at the exact same insane speed as the sports car. Hidden behind his dark helmet, the MC shoots a cold, laser-focused look straight at the suited driver. In total panic, the big guy curses in terror as he sees the biker reach out his arm in a totally suicidal move. Taking advantage of the open window, the teen straight-up rips the entire steering wheel off the moving vehicle using pure brute force. The sports car completely loses control, spinning out wildly across the road while the tires scream. Drifting with zero grip, the luxury ride swerves violently toward an epic wipeout. A colossal crash hits as the car slams head-on into the guardrail, kicking up a massive cloud of dust and debris over the highway. The smashed frame smokes on the shoulder of the dark road, marking a brutal end to the high-speed chase. Stepping firmly onto the pavement, the biker parks his ride and calmly hops off to check out the absolute wreck he just caused. The dust clears on the dark highway, showing the luxury red sports car totally trashed and smoking after smashing hard into the guardrail. With a loud bang, the dented car door gets kicked open by force. The massive driver steps onto the cracked pavement, climbing out of the wreckage. Radiating a toxic aura, the fake queen's partner stands up in the middle of the street, looking unbelievably pissed about the crash. Slowly turning his head, the fur-coat dude flashes a look of pure rage and disbelief at the damage. Checking out his wrecked ride, the suit mutters that it looks like he's gonna have to write off his prized possession. Staring the kid down, he points out the ride is a super sports car and sarcastically asks if the biker has enough cash to cover that kind of damage. Standing a bit away, the MC cracks his neck and grumbles that his regular work uniform was definitely the right choice. Resting his dark helmet on his delivery box, the driver casually explains he just got fired from his last gig and is completely broke. Standing tall and facing his opponent, Lee Sang strikes a confident pose and announces that out of the goodness of his heart, he'll at least cover the big guy's hospital bills. Far from there, the camera cuts back to the fancy inside of the massive Red Heart Hotel, glowing with pink lights. The veteran prosecutor climbs the huge main staircase alongside the rich boss, with the assassin duo following right on their heels. Walking looking stressed, the elegant man thinks about how chaotic this op got in just a few minutes. Sweating bullets from worry, he quietly asks himself if it's really gonna end on such a lame note. Annoyed by the vibe, Yang Jiwoo turns to the bandaged girl and complains she couldn't keep her chill before pressing her own security, blaming her explosive temper for the mess too. Super frustrated, the veteran wonders if he should just swallow his pride and beg the kid to rejoin the squad. Suddenly, the cell phone in the suit's pocket buzzes, grabbing his attention. The screen lights up with a notification from the delivery app, dropping a brand new combat-focused request. The prosecutor stares at the screen in silence, processing the wild update he just got. Holding his phone, he asks the teen a bit awkwardly if this means she wants to patch things up with the kid. Glued to her own screen, the student keeps walking up the stairs and warns there's no take-backsies after a firing. Playing it cool, she explains she just sent out a fresh work order to a delivery guy she already knew well. The adult partner looks bored and mutters that her move is literally the exact same thing he just suggested. At that, the heiress's red eyes go laser-focused, proving she's playing 4D chess. The man in the trench coat freezes for a second, catching on to the genius behind her strategy. Stopping mid-stairs, the prosecutor drops his voice and admits he feels like something is way off about this whole setup. He thinks back to the white helmet merc who crashed the high school, noting that high-priority gig got snatched up way too fast. Doing the math on the coincidences, the veteran points out the attackers in the student council room got taken out first, which made their lives a whole lot easier. His brain pulls up the image of the fake biker who ambushed the VIP lounge, realizing right after that, a bounty popped up targeting the elite hosts. Putting the pieces together, Yang Jiwoo figures out their squad's mission is getting directly hijacked by a super-planned interference. Looking out at the city lights, the suit declares some heavy hitter already knows their playbook in advance and is pulling strings from the shadows. Turning her head, the heiress says they need to strike first before they lose the high ground, telling her partner to push forward solo for now. The guy goes quiet for a beat, and then asks if she seriously plans on keeping him on the payroll after his massive rage-out. With her back to him, the student clarifies she isn't letting the disrespect slide, warning him she's slashing his delivery fee and auditing the whole contract. Starting to walk again, the client drops one final, dead-serious warning for the prosecutor to never pull a stunt like that again. The story jumps back to the wrecked highway, where the orange jumpsuit biker checks his phone and figures out his enemy is the partner of the host Hong Ae. Staring at the massive dude, Lee Sang pockets his phone and coldly announces his delivery has arrived. Next to the smashed car, the villain checks himself out in a tiny hand mirror, cursing up a storm over the whole situation. Fixing his hair with his fingers, the fur coat guy complains non-stop that the crash totally ruined his flawless fade. Putting the mirror away, the suit grumbles that aesthetics are way too important in his line of work. Striking a boss pose on the asphalt, he guarantees a sloppy look heavily tanks the quality of his service. The MC holds up his phone screen looking confused, asking what kind of crazy hustle this guy even runs. Dripping with ego, the fake queen's partner flips the question, wanting to know what the teen pulls in a month doing deliveries. The student goes quiet, not getting why they're having a finance pod chat in the middle of a fight. The enemy starts giving a TED talk about how he tracks, manages, and organizes schedules for ultra VIPs, proudly claiming the country would crash without him. Flexing his iced-out rings, the big guy declares his job is incredibly valuable, which is why he clears hundreds of millions every single month. Pointing with total disrespect, he questions if the biker's gig even qualifies as a real job. The villain calls the kid a useless delivery boy, claiming such bottom-tier work adds zero value to society. Looking up, the student claps back, saying at the end of the day the dude is just a club host, and points out he can make good money too. Laughing at the comeback, the suit mocks the teen, doubting a broke loser like him could ever make enough to flex. Pulling a massive stack of checks from his pocket, the enemy warns he's actually pretty busy right now. Flashing a check worth 100 million won, he trashes the kid, saying a street punk would need 10 years of hard grinding to even touch that kind of cash. Loaded with hidden motives, the villain offers to drop another 100 million right there if the kid takes him to the teen girl he was rolling with. A quiet click is heard as the MC flashes a dark, sarcastic smile at the offer. Taking a threatening step forward, the biker agrees 100 million isn't chump change, but admits hanging around his rich client completely ruined his concept of money. Dropping into a fighting stance, Lee Sang baits the enemy, warning he might think about it if the guy offers 100 times that check. Blinded by rage at the disrespect, the huge dude in the coat clenches his fists, winding up a wrecking ball attack. Screaming with hate, the opponent throws a colossal punch at the kid, writing the delivery guy off as arrogant trash. The insane power of the swing tears through the highway air, while the suit yells that the kid's life has zero actual value. With flawless reflexes, the teen ducks perfectly, dodging the crushing blow that goes whistling right over his head. The big guy completely loses his balance from the force of his own missed shot, leaving his guard wide open. Taking the perfect opening, the MC claps back with a devastating uppercut straight to the enemy's jaw. The brutal impact echoes down the dark road, proving the kid's destructive knockout power. Thanks to the savage counter, the fur coat dude gets launched and hits the asphalt hard. Standing his ground, the student drops his guard and looks confused by how that exchange just played out. Watching the enemy already trying to get up, the delivery guy gets annoyed and asks why he is so unbelievably weak. The kid admits he assumed all the goons rocking that flower badge knew how to actually fight, sighing that he was dead wrong about that. Out of nowhere, a giant hand shoots out and locks onto the biker's wrist with absurd strength, pinning him in place. Flexing inhuman durability, the big dude gets all up in the kid's face and repeats the word weak in a super aggressive tone. Looking completely unhinged, the villain promises he would never stay down from some pathetic punch thrown by a broke kid. The MC's eye goes wide, realizing instantly he made a fatal mistake underestimating this monster's tank stats. Giving him zero time to block, the suit lands a colossal headbutt right to the teen's face. The sheer violence of the crushing blow sends the blonde kid flying through the air, completely losing control of his body. The student bounces aggressively across the wrecked road, rolling several meters before finally coming to a stop. Showing all his rage, the fake queen's partner charges like an unstoppable tank, winding up a new brutal combo to crush the outsider. From the devastating headbutt, the delivery guy gets violently tossed, sliding and tearing up the highway pavement as he tries to brake. The teen finally manages to stop his momentum in the middle of the broken road, looking up out of breath and covered in smoke. Dripping with ego, the big dude aims his phone to snap a pic of the grounded enemy, trash-talking the kid and calling him weak. Still on the ground, the MC just stares at the guy looking bored out of his mind, seeming way more annoyed than actually hurt. At that, Lee Sang lets out a small grunt of pain, finally feeling the aftershocks of the heavy hit he just ate. The fake queen partner's phone screen captures the code student, while the villain roasts his pathetic state. Moving super sketchy, the suit pulls a weird little capsule out of a hidden stash in his coat. He pops the pill straight into his dirty mouth, announcing he's about to prove the point he made earlier. Looking down at the kid, the enemy doubles down that the outsider is just a total weakling. Ripping his fur coat off in a rage, the big guy declares that from this moment on, he's gonna show the true power of capital. Miles from the highway, a fancy elevator screen lights up, marking the arrival at floor 22. The doors slide open to a long hotel hallway completely littered with knocked-out goons. At the end of the chaotic path, the massive double doors to a suite are kicked wide open, drowning the room in darkness. The high-end interior turns out to be the VIP host Hongi's personal room, which right now is totally deserted. Stepping into the room, the veteran prosecutor scans the empty space and quickly guesses the woman bolted. Doing the math on the setup, the prosecutor remembers the host had a booking to entertain a major VIP today. The woman with glasses turns to her assassin partner and asks if their elite coworker hasn't shown up to the meetup yet. Chinggual keeps her eyes locked on the room, processing the data in dead silence. Pacing through the luxury suite, the blue dress woman gets distracted by a small object left on the table. It was a small dark bottle dumped on the furniture, proving someone was just here. The assassin shakes the bottle near her ear, listening to the pills rattling around inside. Holding one of the capsules, she studies the stuff while the veteran asks confused if it's some kind of meds. Suddenly, the heavy sound of dragging footsteps echoes down the wrecked hallway outside the suite. One of the hotel's goons stumbles into view sweating bullets, mumbling super weakly about a delivery. The wounded guy collapses on his knees right at the double doors, announcing the arrival of a mystery package. Shaking in pain, the guard repeats the warning that the delivery has finally reached their floor. The prosecutor and the assassin's eyes bug out in panic, as the goon starts screaming the phrase at the top of his lungs like his life depends on it. Weirded out by the freaky behavior, Chinggual mutters, having no clue what is happening to the guy. In a brutal scene, the guard's body starts tearing in half, showing something terrifying forcing its way through from behind him. Busting through the human shield, the fake delivery guy in the dark helmet steps up like a boss through the smoke, crashing the hallway. The merc keeps his face hidden behind the visor, radiating a lethal, unstoppable aura after the violent breach. The hostage goon lets out one last agonizing, deafening scream announcing the delivery before completely fading out. With zero chill, the invader punches straight through the guard with a devastating blow, forcing his way. At another spot, an older glasses-wearing ally roasts a beaten enemy for starting a riot in front of the VIP host. Looting the knocked-out attacker's pockets, the veteran finds an identical mystery capsule and freaks out at the drop. The glasses woman holds up the pill and flags down her blue-haired partner, asking what the heck this thing is. The host analyzes the tiny object in her friend's hand with a look full of stress and questions. Back at the hotel, the fake biker pulls his fist out of the smashed guard, ready to kick off a massacre. The story snaps back to the highway, where the big dude in the coat holds up the capsule, flexing that it costs tens of millions on the black market. With his muscles ballooning freakishly, he explains the drug maxes out every physical stat the second it drops. With an explosive dash, the enemy closes the gap in a blink and throws a wrecking ball punch at the MC. Running on pure reflexes, the delivery guy slides back by a hair, while the villain's fist obliterates the concrete barrier behind him. Veins popping out of his face, the fake queen's partner insanely warns that the kid's hits aren't going to cause any damage anymore. The student resets his stance and sarcastically asks if the guy popped $1 million pill just to buff his defense against getting punched. Flexing his hands that are now warped with massive muscles, the villain claps back that the buff does way more than just tank hits. Blocking a savage combo, the teen locks down the big guy's fist, having to use both arms just to handle the pressure. Towering over him, the opponent brags that his muscle density went absolutely sicko mode, thanks to the flashing a twisted psycho smile, the villain promises he hit a physical tier that some broke kid could never dream of. With one simple stomp, the enemy craters the highway asphalt, flexing the crushing power flowing through him. Clasping both hands together, the dude drops a sledgehammer blow to flatten the student, screaming for him to just get wiped out already. Without showing a drop of panic, the delivery guy reads the brute force move and readies his guard to catch the impact. Agile and clean, the MC redirects the strike, using the giant enemy's own momentum against him. Exploiting the stumble, Lee Sang hits a lightning-fast sweep, completely catching the big guy off guard and taking out his legs. The biker pins the opponent to the ground and sarcastically asks if his joints also got a premium upgrade from the drug. Right after, the teen locks in a ruthless armbar, cranking the villain's joint with flawless technique. The fake queen's partner lets out an agonizing scream, feeling his bones popping under the insane pressure of the hold. The suit's face twists in pure panic and sweat, proving his weak spot just got totally exposed. Releasing the lock, the student backflips away smoothly, keeping absolute control over the fight's spacing. Kneeling and clutching his cranked arm, the villain listens to the kid conclude that his joints are exactly as basic as they were before. Landing softly on the cracked road, the teen mocks that the guy just blew up his muscles a bit to try and flex. Staying in his fighting stance, the MC ironically advises the enemy that he should have just bought a gym membership instead of popping pills. Triggered by the absolute humiliation, the big dude shoots a look full of hate, cursing the teen for being so cocky. Ignoring all red flags, the suit dumps the whole bottle and grabs a massive handful of red capsules. In a desperate suicide play, he shoves the entire handful of pills down his throat, dry swallowing the lot. Watching the cringy scene, the delivery guy mutters that it doesn't matter how many meds the dude takes, the end result is gonna be exactly the same. The villain's body starts mutating in a weird, out-of-control way, while he laughs, swearing the overdose isn't gonna take him out. The guy's leg muscles swell so much they rip his dress pants, and he hypes himself up, yelling that the power is overflowing. Lost in the sauce, the muscle monster charges full speed at the biker, screaming that he finally unlocked supreme power. Facing the terrifying, massive rush, the kid in the orange uniform just keeps a look of pure boredom and zero cares. The enemy's face warps into a demon-like look, thirsty for blood and ready to crush the outsider. Moving faster than the eye can track, Lee Sang slices the air with a lightning-fast direct hit, busting through the enemy's defense in a split second and dropping the giant. The student slowly fixes his posture after landing the perfect finisher, giving a side-eye to see the results. The shot shows the MC standing totally chill, while the mountain of muscle smokes on the cracked asphalt, completely knocked out. Looking down at the gross, beaten figure at his feet, the teen coldly checks out the state the big guy ended up in. Flashing a ruthless glare, the biker notes with a bit of surprise that the monster actually kept breathing, even after taking a hit like that. The MC looks at his phone and casually tells the defeated giant to not punch his own ticket right there, complaining that if the guy taps out for good like this, it's gonna look like it was all his fault. Putting the phone to his ear, the teen dials straight out and checks if he's talking to the hospital, telling the ER crew to come scoop up a busted patient. Before hanging up, the delivery guy pauses to add a tiny detail, curiously asking if that driver guy's hand got reattached okay, all while the huge dude smokes on the highway floor. The app screen pulls up the mission details, scanning the code enemy's face. Instantly, the system confirms the priority gig was successfully cleared. Far away, the assassin Chinggual inspects a tiny mystery pill in the dark, trying to figure out the scale of the mess they're in. The woman in the blue dress keeps a quiet, focused look, realizing the hotel situation just went totally off the rails. In the same room, the rich boss covers her mouth in shock, whispering that she can't believe the host Hong Ae went out like that. The bandaged teen scopes out the heavy vibe and pieces together that the mystery ops gunning for the district's top bosses was definitely not Hong Ae herself, proving the squad's first theory was completely busted. Confused by the awful plot twist, the young heiress wonders out loud who is hunting them all down so ruthlessly. Cutting off the brainstorming, Chinggual asks for a second to clear up a major detail. The assassin looks at the student and asks why she was so hyped on the idea that Hong Ae was the mastermind pulling the strings from day one. Keeping her guard up, the rich client claps back, swearing she never actually confirmed or claimed anything like that. The girl's eyes show some heavy stress as she digs through her memories for the real reasons that dragged her to this sketchy spot. She starts spilling the tea, telling the woman in blue that the roots of this whole mess started exactly 2 years ago, kicked off by a massive, silent turf war between the district's elite VIP hosts. The center of that crazy competition was the #1 presidential candidate at the time, a guy named Seong Jeoncheol. Getting picked by a guy sitting at the absolute top of the food chain meant a once-in-a-lifetime chance to level up from a basic worker to queen status. During the meetups, Hong Ae showed a crazy obsession with locking down that premium spot next to the politician. But the women who actually ended up getting chosen by him were a host named Bi Kyung and Chunggual herself, leaving the rival completely on. Hong Ae just couldn't handle the massive L, feeling the rejection totally shatter her ego. Her hate for everyone involved leveled up past the point of no return, creating a super toxic, dangerous grudge. After that drama, the rejected woman started building up her own crew ruthlessly and by any means necessary, growing her faction by playing local politics and starting beef among the girls. She also stacked an insane amount of cash by dipping her hands into any shady hustle that printed money fast. Until one day, every screen in the city broke the tragic news that the big candidate had passed away suddenly. The heiress guesses that, like she was just waiting for that exact moment of weakness. The jealous rival instantly dropped the mask and flexed her dark agenda, taking over the underground alleys. The big dude in the fur coat was already showing up as her main enforcer in this ruthless hostile takeover. Chunggual admits she got super lucky to make it out of that purge in one piece, confessing she hasn't been able to step foot in this dangerous hood since. The woman in blue reveals that her coworker Bi Kyung decided to stay behind and fight Hong Ae's wrath to the bitter end. The tough host ended up cornered by an army of rival workers ready to end her right in the middle of the lounge. Keeping her untouchable vibe, the brave woman faced the heat head-on without flinching. But in the end, the defense failed, and poor Bi Kyung got completely crushed in the clash, getting her entire existence wiped off the map without a trace. The rich boss nods and wraps up, saying it was exactly because of this whole revenge history that she assumed Hong Ae was the villain hunting their squad right now. Keeping her logic solid, the young student points out that with the VIP queen spot left empty, the rival would definitely try to lock it down without leaving any loose ends. The teen's glare turns super dark as she processes the glitch in her own theory. The assassin in blue jumps in, reminding her that this big-shot presidential candidate from back then. Stepping up to the mic, the bandaged client confidently drops the bomb that the politician they're talking about was her own dad. Chunggual drops her head looking sketchy, seemingly not buying the romanticized version of the story. The woman claims she isn't swallowing that excuse, pointing out the late boss wasn't the kind of guy to hang out with bottom feeders like that. Shocked by the worker's nerve, the heiress's eyes go wide, realizing the assassin knew exactly who she was. Acting cynical, Chunggual apologizes for being blunt, warning the kid that the adult world isn't nearly as clean and pure as she thinks. The villain guarantees that the country's elite have always treated dirty entertainment as standard business, swearing the teen's dad was definitely no exception. Pissed at the allegations, the young student demands to know what this arrogant woman thinks she knows about her father. She passionately argues that the man was a legit, honorable guy in every way. Staying chilled during the rant, Chunggual nods and says that in her memories. The politician never treated the district girls like cheap dates, but as actual human equals. Looking the heiress dead in the eye, she swears she holds nothing but pure respect and good memories of him, admitting her heart actually sank when she heard the tragic news. The woman in blue offers her deepest condolences for the massive loss the kid went through. Breaking the tension, the rich boss calls the coworker by her real name Seonha, looking surprised by the rival's genuine vibe. The veteran prosecutor crashes the nostalgia trip, holding up the tiny red pill in his glove and swearing this is definitely the dangerous drug from before. The suit reveals this is the exact same narcotic the girl's dad tried to block and keep off the streets back in the day. Chunggual adds to the lore, saying the politician even lobbied hard against the Minister of Health and Welfare to shut the operation down. Snapping back to the mission, the bandaged teen announces she's just hunting for the person who caused her family's loss. She wonders if the guy who took out Hong Ae could be the exact same culprit who took out her dad. Processing the scary theory, the assassin furrows her brow, sweating bullets, asking if that could actually be true. Gripping her phone like a boss, the student warns that to get a concrete answer, she's gonna need a massive solid from the squad right now. The rich client holds up her screen and stares at her blue dress ally, asking if top-tier VIP hosts also take delivery requests. The dark night wraps around the front of a huge, lit-up hospital, signaling a hard-scene chain. The glowing sign above a hospital door flashes bright letters, warning there's an operation going down. With a sharp click, the electronic sign powers off, signaling the medical run is finally. In the OR, the crew hypes up the head surgeon for the top-tier work, blown away that he knocked out 10 surgeries in one single day. One of the assistants is fanboying hard, admitting he used to only hear rumors about the doctor's insane stamina, but now he's seen the magic firsthand. Super burnt out by the glazing, the blonde surgeon tells the squad to zip it while he unties his face mask. Turning his back on his amazed coworkers, he orders the assistants to handle the post-op solo and announces he's taking a well-earned break. Walking down the hall with a dark, exhausted look, the doctor drops a strict warning for them not to hit his line for the rest of the day. The glowing hospital ceiling guides the pro to the restricted, dead-quiet zones of the building. The surgeon's classic rubber crocs squeak at a chill, careless pace across the spotless white floor. Hyped to be off the clock, the specialist hums a chill beat, completely relieved to finally leave the grind behind. He strolls through the long, empty, dark staff hallway, humming his tune to the void. With a firm click, he pulls the breakroom handle open, asking the person waiting inside if they've been chilling there long. Walking in and tossing his scrub top, the surgeon complains that this hospital dumps way too much annoying busywork on him. Tossing his gear on a chair, he sighs in relief that all his tasks are cleared, celebrating that now he can spend the whole rest of his day hanging with his secret company. The blonde doctor named Lei checks out the room, sarcastically asking if her patient is just as hyped as she is. She then calls the prisoner, who's totally strapped to the vertical stretcher, by his name Bae Min-jun. Having lost all hope, he just begs the woman to put him out of his misery once and for all. Finding the guy's panic hilarious, the surgeon promises she wouldn't do that, explaining there's zero chance she'd waste such a premium lab rat. At that, she grabs a sharp scalpel from the metal tray and announces the real work is about to start. Flexing the tool in her hands, the interrogation specialist thinks out loud, super curious to decide which method she'll use to make him squirm today.